And we are live. Hello, everybody. This is Philo, however you wanna spell it. And as always, with me is Martin. And so today's stream is again on the same. We have had probably already 3 streams on the debate between Harris Sultan and Qaiser Ahmed Raja, and so this will be the fourth stream uh, on the review of that debate, basically. And this time we are going to cover the opening statement by Qaiser Ahmed Raja, and I hope that sincerely hope that we run it a little faster than we have been running it past 3 streams, because we still haven't covered we still have to cover the opening statement by Qaiser Ahmed Raja, and then there are counter arguments to those opening statements, 10-minute counter arguments again, and another 10 minutes, and then there is a cross examination and question answer. So there is a lot of material for us to cover and go through. But then the nature of these debates is always like this, because you want to cover almost every single point, and so that's a difficult task. And let's see how we fare this time. Madin, as is always with me, and
Mhm.
we'll try to pace ourselves. But let's see, we don't want to miss on anything. That's one of the main thing I think we're care about, and that's why we are doing this review. Madin, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I think we should just jump into it and go into the substance. Yeah.
All right, let me try and share the screen first. And this is the. Do you have it on screen?
Yep, it's there.
All right, let's see.
पहली strike समझ
So I'm
लीजिए।
gonna just run it
हम
a
कोशिश करेंगे इस
little,
कैसर भाई
probably
आधा मिनट
1.25
छोड़ दें, you are on
times.
the screen, go ahead।
Okay.
ये मेरी आप जो शेयर किया है मेरे नीचे प्रेजेंटेशन ये आप दिखा सकते हैं।
जी स्क्रीन पे आती है।
टाइम स्टार्ट हो गया मेरा?
जी बिल्कुल हो गया। You have about 33 minutes क्योंकि इतना ही हारिस भाई ने दिया।
शुक्रिया जी। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अस्सलाम वालेकुम। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका अब्बास, आपने ये अकोमोडेट किया, और शुक्रिया हारिस सुल्तान साहब का भी कि वो भी आए डिबेट क्लैप्स होने के बाद दोबारा ये स्टार्ट हुई। अच्छा, हमने कुछ चीज़ें तय की थी कि आज हम डिबेट ऐसे करेंगे कि हम एक दूसरे से इत्तेफाक करें या ना करें, लेकिन कम से कम लोग सीख जाएं कि डिबेट कैसे की जाती है, अखलाकी एतबार से कैसे की जाती है। तो मैं पूरी कोशिश करूंगा कि मैं इसके अंदर रहते हुए मैं सारा करूँ। मैं इज्जत एहतराम सब अपनी जगह पे, लेकिन मुझे एक अपनी डिसअपॉइंटमेंट जरूर रजिस्टर करानी है कि मैं बहुत अरसे से मैं डिबेट्स कर रहा हूँ। मैं यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ बेडफोर्डशायर में, जहाँ मैं पढ़ा भी, मैंने पढ़ाया भी, मैं अपनी मूविंग टीम यानी अपनी।
All right, so the opening statement started with a few, general remarks about the debate and all those things. Madin, can you hear me fine?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
All right. Yeah. So general statement about the remark, and then Qaiser is saying that within reasonable respect, he starts off with expressing his disappointment towards the debating.
जो डिबेट्स की जो टीम होती है, उसका मैं टीम कैप्टन भी था। पूरे यूके में जाते थे, डिबेट्स करते थे, बड़े-बड़े आला ज़हन के लोग हैं, प्रोफेशनल डिबेटर्स, उनसे सीखने का मौका मिला। देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ डेटा यू गेट। उसके बाद आपके कोई एक ज़हन में आइडिया आ जाता है कि जब आप कोई एकेडमिक या प्रोफेशनल डिबेट में जाते हैं तो उसका तरीका क्या होता है।
So he's disappointed in the way Harris carried out the debate, basically. And he also expressed that he was I think I told you he studied in University of Bradfordshire. I don't know, I'm not quite sure where it is. You are probably aware of it, maybe, right? And so he studied, and he was the captain of his debating team in University of Bradfordshire and all that stuff. And he has been in debate with many academicians and all at the same time. Probably within the same university, I'm assuming. So he's just expressing his disappointment.
कहीं भी ऑनलाइन ऑफलाइन कभी भी किसी ऐसी डिबेट में नहीं गया कि जिसका टाइटल हो इस्लामिक मोरालिटी वर्सेस एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी। इनके दो चीज़ों को हमने आपस में, यानी कि मैंने एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी को गलत साबित करना है, इस्लामिक मोरालिटी को ठीक साबित करना है, और हारिस सुल्तान इसके ऑपोजिट जाना है। लेकिन मुझे जिंदगी में कोई तजर्बा ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि एक डिबेटर अपने पॉइंट को ना सिर्फ ये कि शुरू में उससे फरार हासिल कर ले, बल्कि यह है कि दूसरे से कहे कि नहीं, आप बताएंगे एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी क्यों।
So he's expressing his disappointment that Harris didn't. He hasn't gone to any such debate where the opponent or one party does not defend his own case, basically, and then ask the other party, the opponent, to explain his case, basically. And he's saying he's ruining that fact that Harris hasn't defined what atheistic morality is, basically. and that's the point he's drawing, and is should I use the word harping on? Maybe harping is a little too disdainful. Maybe I don't know, but
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
You
So
want to say something about that, or you heard Harris's
yeah.
side of the opening statement?
Yeah. I
So
think.
is
I
this
think. Go on.
no? Is this a fair objection?
Yeah, I think it is a fair objection, because I think Harris probably should have emphasized more a case for his specific atheistic morality, maybe using some slides, explain the mechanics of his framework, and that would have at least shown that he's got some rational framework in which he operates his thinking from, and that would have also given the Islamic proponent Qaiser the chance to pick holes in Harris's framework, as Harris is doing within the Islamic framework. Having said that, each proponent is still able to knock down each other's frameworks, and this might actually be somewhat and this is open to dispute, a somewhat intelligent move by Harris.
Yeah,
because
I totally agree to that. I mean, I can't agree anymore on these 2 points. Basically, this is a very good strategy to avoid having listed this. And this was he later on, actually, Harris said that in post debate reviews and all those, that he didn't object to this title of the debate, Islamic morality versus atheistic morality, because prior to this debate in his other streams, he has always maintained that position, that there is no such thing as atheistic morality, as in there is no cohesive atheistic morality like there is Islamic morality, that you can take it from a single book or maybe a series of books, basically. So in that sense, I think I do agree with you, and also I agree to your former point as well, basically, that Qaiser's objection is valid in that sense, that probably Harris could have listed his position on the basis of philosophy, or however he wanted to.
I mean, I don't know exactly what strategy he might be using. I was thinking more that by avoiding talking about his framework, what happens is that the Islamic proponent is forced to defend his own, and that's it. And the opponent's case remains mysterious. Now, if you're smart enough, you can point out repeatedly in the debate that the opponent has not even made the atheist has not even made a case, and therefore he loses by default, right? Mm-hmm. That might have been Qaiser's. We've not watched the entire debate, or at least I haven't. That might be Qaiser's point as a primary objection to Harris to the remainder of the debate, because I think that would win to some extent, or at least defeat the case for atheistic morality. But when Harris, for example, presses Qaiser on trying to defend maybe the internal coherency of Islamic morality, etc., or the external coherency, in the sense that Harris probably is using some sort of equation to assess the morality of Qaiser's of Islam, etc. If Qaiser doesn't meet pass those tests, let's say, he fails to meet the burden of proof. He fails to meet the burden of proof on his end. So each debater has a burden of proof to prove their own case, right? And if one debater fails to prove their own case, it doesn't automatically mean the opponent has proven their case. Yes?
Right, I totally agree.
So, it could very well be that Harris doesn't present an atheistic morality, but at the same time, Qaiser doesn't cross the burden of proof to show that he's adequately defended against Harris's objections. Who wins the debate then? Well, it might be like
in the best case, in the best case, then is the question that none of them has proved, and you can't say one way or the other. It's a hung jury in that sense, pretty much.
Kind of like that, yeah. And this is what I meant by debate strategy. if Harris is the type of person who thinks that he can't, for example,
Defend his
erect
case.
an atheistic, have a good defense of his type of morality, he could use this debate just to point out the holes in the Islamic case, and drawing is enough on a technical basis, because at the very minimum he's actually shown some flaws with theistic morality, that's Islamic morality.
No,
You know?
he has. You are spot on. You are spot on, and he has maintained that position.
Oh, was he?
Very
Okay.
well. He
Yeah.
has maintained that position, that my intention for going to this debate is not to defend whatever my position is, but to expose Islamic morality, basically. And
Okay.
so it's from his side, it's a win-win situation for him, basically, because more and more people are going to watch and see what is in there, and because they are not aware of these things, the problems that he's listing here in terms
Anyway,
of Islamic
I
morality.
suggest we
We get on with it. We get on with it.
Don't need to focus on this part for that long.
Yeah, sure.
सीखने बंदा डिबेट्स में नहीं आया करता, सीखने आता है ऑफ द रिकॉर्ड, पूछता है। अभी जैसे मैं आपसे पूछूंगा जो आपने हवाले दिए हैं, ये बाद में आप सीखेंगे। लेकिन ये कहाँ की मुझे समझ नहीं आ रही, कोई डिबेट हो रही है कि नहीं मैं एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी पे बात नहीं करूंगा। अब मेरे लिए दिक्कत ये है कि अगर मैं एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी पे बात ना करूं, जो कैसा होगा नहीं, इसलिए मेरा काम है कि जो एथियज्म का जो असल मकरूह और अक्ल खून से भरा हुआ चेहरा है, मिसोजिनिस्ट चेहरा है, वो दुनिया के सामने आए। फ्ली कर जाना, ये मुझे बड़ी दिलचस्पी हुई है देख के कि आगे क्या होगा, गिवन द फैक्ट कि बहुत से जो पाकिस्तान के एथियस्ट है वो कह रहे थे कि अब पता चलेगा। मेरे ख्याल में उन्हें पता चल गया कि एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी में गहराई कितनी है कि जो उनके चैंपियन आए हैं, एक लफ्ज तक एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी क्या है डिफाइन तक नहीं किया। खैर, अच्छा, मैं चाहता हूं कि एक छोटी सी जो हम जितने भी इंसान हैं, हमारे पास जो सेंस ऑफ मोरालिटी है उसे हम अल्लाह ताला की ज़ात में ग्राउंड करते हैं, और देयरफॉर हम एक अलग हमारे पास जो सेंस की बेहतरीन मखलूकात में से एक मखलूक, मेरी पोजीशन की समझ ये है कि मैं इंसान हूं, हम जितने भी इंसान हैं, हम अल्लाह ताला की बेहतरीन मखलूकात में से एक मखलूक हैं। देयरफॉर हम एक अलग हमारे पास जो सेंस ऑफ मोरालिटी है उसे हम अल्लाह ताला की ज़ात में ग्राउंड करते हैं, और उसकी बेस पे हम मॉरल जजमेंट्स ड्रॉ करते हैं। वी मेक मॉरल जजमेंट्स। ये है मेरी समरी। दूसरी है हारिस सुल्तान की समरी, जो कि एक एवोल्यूशनिस्ट हैं। और
All right. So Madin, what he says before he starts his case for Islamic morality, he wants to clarify his position that us humans are God's one of the best creations, I think. And we ground our sense of morality on the person of that God, and based on those we make moral judgments, basically. And I'm loosely translating it, so maybe if there are any minor points that I'm missing, probably somebody or the other is going to come and point those out, right? So that's what he's saying, that the morality is grounded in that God, basically. And this is the same position that is taken by the like of William Lane Craig or most of the Christian apologists. All right, let's move on.
जो फाइलोजेनेटिक ट्री है उसकी रोशनी में इनका ये दावा है कि इंसान में, पैथोजन में, बैक्टीरिया में कोई फर्क नहीं है। सो इन अदर वर्ड्स हम ये कह रहे हैं कि मैं ये कहता हूं कि मैं बाकी जानवरों से बेहतर हूं, देयरफॉर मैं मोरल क्लेम कर सकता हूं, इसलिए कि मोरालिटी बहुत से क्रिटिकल डिफरेंसेस में से एक डिफरेंस है। हारिस सुल्तान का दावा यह है कि हारिस सुल्तान और बैक्टीरिया में कोई फर्क नहीं है, एंड आई डोंट मीन टू डिसरिस्पेक्टफुल एट ऑल। ये इनका फाइलोजेनेटिक ट्री है, बिल्कुल जैसे हारिस सुल्तान मुझे नमाजी कहे तो मुझे बुरा नहीं लगना चाहिए, ऐसे ही अगर मैं इनका फाइलोजेनेटिक ट्री इनके सामने रखूं तो उनको बुरा नहीं लगना चाहिए। कि वो ये कहते हैं कि उनमें और बैक्टीरिया, पैथोजेंस में कोई फर्क नहीं है, लेकिन इसके बावजूद ये मोरल क्लेम्स कर सकते हैं, और साथ ये कह रहे हैं कि ये एब्सोल्यूट नहीं होती, सब्जेक्टिव होती है। देन हाउ डू यू नो कि गलत क्या है और सही क्या है?
All right, so now he's spoken quite a bit, so let me just try to translate it. So he's talking about Harris Sultan's summary. He's talking about Harris Sultan is saying he's an evolutionist, and based on phylogenetic tree, it is his claim that there is no difference between him, basically Harris, and a pathogen, basically, or a bacteria, whatever, right? Even when they don't have any difference between bacteria and him, he can still make moral claims. And they also say that morality is not absolute, right? So this is Qaiser is talking about Harris, basically, what his position is. That so he's saying that between humans and bacteria, there's no difference, and yet humans can make moral claims and moral judgments, basically. And when they say morality is not absolute and it is subjective, then how can you claim that what is right and what is wrong, basically? So I see, from my perspective, I'll give it to you, but let me point out a few problems here. He's speaking his Harris's, he's kind of speaking for Harris, which probably I couldn't find whether he spoke about that or not, or he's assuming that every atheist thinks this way. So his claim is that Qaiser claim is that there's no difference between a human and a pathogen. I think that's a markedly wrong assumption. Basically, I don't think any
Yeah.
atheist thinks that basically. And
Yeah. So let me just. Oh, sorry. I'll let you finish off. I'll let you finish
no,
off.
and then okay, I'll let you handle it. Basically, yeah. Go ahead.
No. I mean, if you want to finish, because you said you wanted
No,
to take
I
your
just
time.
finished. That's one of the main
Okay.
problems
All right.
I had. The other problem I'll
Okay.
cover.
Yeah. So when people say there's no difference, that's like a premise in an argument, right? You have to say like the first premise is there are no differences between pathogens and humans. Yeah. You can let's say that's the premise. He needs to articulate exactly what he means by that, and that makes him a sketchy philosophical debater there. Already he's look. You are giving me the translations. I don't know the exact words. I'm reliant upon you. But when he says there's no difference,
Right.
under which lens and framework, there's no difference in regards to what, right? It's completely
Yeah,
vague.
he hasn't actually listed that, and that's one of the. That's why I'm saying that this is really sketchy argumentation. Basically,
Yes.
it's my opinion, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to
No.
really
You're right.
clarify what somebody.
You're right. So I'm assuming this person has no real philosophical schooling or backing, because that making a claim like that in a debate after him pronouncing that he's been to debate competitions, maybe for politics and law or something, if that's his background. But philosophy, you can't get away with that. Like there's no difference between pathogens and humans. In what realm? Now you can make the argument, for example, that there's no difference between humans and pathogens in the sense that they are both life, then okay.
Right, and they are both built up of atoms, certain atoms,
Yeah.
maybe, and they have certain,
Yeah, and exactly. There's no difference in the sense that they're both cellular. Yes. So when you contextualize it, it makes sense. Otherwise, it doesn't. I'm assuming the implicit thing that he wants to say is that there's no moral difference. Right.
And that's a sketchy argumentation. Basically, that's a very sketchy argumentation.
But when he says that, he needs to explain his premise through reasoning how there is no moral difference, right? And without that, that's like saying starting the argument with God exists in a debate about God, or something like that. It's almost circular, his argument. It's like an assertion that he's made there. There is no difference. Now, maybe in the following segments, he will fill it out, explain it. But without that, that's just an assertion, without any explanation. I can think of many differences, obviously, between pathogens and humans. I don't think the audience, I don't want to insult the intelligence of our audience by saying what those differences are.
Yeah, I don't think that you even need to spell it out, because everybody has to. I mean, you have to really, qualify your words when you're saying there's no difference. If somebody says so, and a person who probably has an average IQ of 100 or something like that, maybe I'm just giving an example, so I'm just taking this number as 100 IQ. He will have an idea that there is a difference between a pathogen and a person, even if it happens to be an atheist. So you'll have to clarify what that there's no difference. If you're saying there's no difference, then you have to qualify in what sense they are talking about. And if you're talking about morality, then you have to be really specific in what sense you're talking about morality. Can a pathogen be an agent of moral judgment? If you can, then you'll have to demonstrate that, basically, pretty much, I think. But anyways, let's move on from because we can. This is one of the points that really struck me, actually, and so I wanted you to spell that out. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to talk about this. And I didn't hear Harris when he reviewed his debate. He didn't see these points in these minutiae, basically. I'm pretty sure. This is like struck
So
me.
these are the problems we'll be dealing with today. मेरा जो end goal है वो ये है कि मैंने आज आपके सामने ये केस रखना है.
So Harris, I'm saying Mahadin. Sorry about that. Mahadin, you can see that now he has his nicely constructed slide or whatever, PPT file, whatever. And so now it's going to be easier for you to at least get the broader points. But I'm still, because since there's been a lot of talk from his side, quite a bit of minor points I'll have to still clarify. But you can you see the slides and you'll get the broader points?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is no such thing as atheistic morality. Atheists cannot raise moral questions on Islam, and Islam presents the best case for morality. Okay.
So these are the 3 points he's going to focus his opening statement on, basically, or the whatever up until wherever it lasts, basically.
और इंशाल्लाह उसे साबित करना है कि देयर इज नो सच थिंग एज एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी। कोई एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी नाम की चीज होती नहीं है। मेरे ख्याल में ये बात अब कंफर्म हो चुकी है, क्योंकि अगर एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी नाम की कोई चीज होती जिसका दिफा करने के लिए हारिस सुल्तान साहब तशरीफ लाए थे और एक लफ्ज तक उन्होंने इसमें नहीं कहा, तो मेरे ख्याल में ये तो हमारे लिए आसान काम है। अब आगे जो है हारिस सुल्तान साहब ने मेरी मदद ही करनी है लोगों को मजीद कन्विंस करने के लिए ये एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी नहीं होती। और मुझे अच्छा लगा कि शुरू में हम एक पेज पे आ गए हैं। नंबर 2 के चूंकि एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी कोई चीज नहीं होती, देयरफॉर एथियस्ट कोई इस्लाम पे या किसी और सिस्टम पे, यहाँ पे इस्लाम के को रिप्रेजेंट करूंगा, देखो मैं इस्लाम की बात करूंगा, कि एथियस्ट इस्लाम पे कोई मोरल क्लेम, कोई मोरल एतराज उठा ही नहीं सकते, कोई क्वेश्चन ऑब्जेक्शन ये नहीं उठा सकते, बिकॉज़ दे हैव एब्सोल्युटली नो सेंस ऑफ मोरालिटी कि वो होती क्या है।
So here's one point that he made, that atheists cannot raise any question on Islam. I'm just going to back it up a little.
या किसी और सिस्टम पे, यहाँ पे इस्लाम के को रिप्रेजेंट करूंगा, देखो मैं इस्लाम की बात करूंगा, कि एथियस्ट इस्लाम पे कोई मोरल क्लेम, कोई मोरल एतराज उठा ही नहीं सकते, कोई क्वेश्चन ऑब्जेक्शन ये नहीं उठा सकते।
So Qaiser is stating here that atheists cannot raise any objection on Islam because they don't have any grounds to raise any objections on Islam or morality of Islam, basically. That's his point. And maybe to a certain extent that might be true for someone who doesn't have a grounding for his morality, right? I mean, if you come across a person who says, I don't have any grounding for my morality, I can make up my morality pretty much randomly, then you can say, okay, then how can you raise a question on somebody else's morality, right? But if somebody backs up his or her morality on certain precepts, and they don't necessarily have to be objective or absolute, but if there are certain precepts that person follows, maybe somebody say is a Kantian, right, who bases his or her morality on the nature of reason, as Kant would say, right? Then he has every right to criticize any morality that doesn't fit into his paradigm. Whether he's right or wrong is a different issue now, right? That's up for debate still, right?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of right. I think the idea that atheists cannot raise moral questions on Islam, or let's assume for a minute that there is no such thing as a moral framework that you can hold on, that is compatible with an atheism. Yeah, it doesn't follow that one cannot criticize Islamic framework. Reason being that the Islamic framework has its own internal coherency and consistency, right? And that could be one area of attack that one might make, and that you might, for example, discover that God is supposed to be a particular type of moral being, and that presumes certain characteristics. Let's say he is compassionate or something, and then
just want to it says God is infinitely compassionate, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but if you have an infinitely compassionate God, for example, you might therefore look at particular moral scenarios and moral principles and legal principles and policies, etc., that the Islamic corpus has decided, and then see whether that is consistent with a compassionate being, a benevolent being, a just being, a merciful being. So you can raise questions and doubts, and of course, so that's pretty possible, even if you're a nihilist. Yeah, you can be completely and entirely a nihilist. Yeah,
and yet question
an atheist
Islamic
nihilist.
morality, right?
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, and you can say, for example, why did XYZ happen? This seems to be immoral under the Islamic framework in itself.
Right.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with your point, and your point is that you are not judging Islamic morality in that case, in that particular scenario that you presented. You're not judging based on certain external moral framework, but
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
within the same
Correct.
Islamic moral framework, and the logical consistencies or inconsistencies within those frameworks, basically. And now you're
Mm.
attacking it within itself, basically.
Yeah, and if the objection to that is that you can't do that because you can't judge God's morality or something like that, it opens up a can of worms that are self-destructive and self-annihilating for the defender of Islamic morality or any theistic morality. For example, soon as you press that button, soon as you hit that nuclear code, and it is a nuclear code, you blow yourself up, right? Yeah,
Right,
you literally
right,
blow yourself, and that nuclear code is, well, we cannot judge because we are limited. We're not. You, the atheist, you know, you have a subjective moral understanding. You just can't build objective moral standards to assess God's morality. We can't do that as humans. We have puny intelligence, and God is this infinitely wise being, and there might be mysterious reasons that we cannot eliminate that God might possess. Here's the problem: you just nucleate all forms of knowledge, human knowledge, because if it is the case that there is a infinitely powerful being that sets a moral code, and you cannot assess whether it's correct, then how do you know it is correct? Look at the last
right.
premise, last number 3 there. What does it say? It says Islam presents the best case for morality. And how do you adjudicate and determine that? Well, you can't, because if I don't know English, you don't know English, the entire world population doesn't know English. And if an alien came along and started speaking English, how would we know he's speaking English?
Right,
How would
I
we even
agree
know?
with your point. So
Yeah,
I totally agree, and just want to
yeah.
expand on your point here. The number 3 is
Mhm.
problematic. How can you come to even know about what is the best thing, right? Because
Mm.
when you're saying best is only your subjective interpretation of best, basically, in that
Yeah,
sense.
exactly. Because if you're saying that humans can't assess or judge these things, and we cannot the best case for morality is Islamic case, and at the same time he's saying we cannot assess. And number 2, we cannot assess it. Then how do we know it's the best case? Yeah, like I said,
Exactly.
it's like either a linguistic or intellectual problem, because you're talking about an alien who is suggesting that he has the best case for morality, but we don't have the knowledge to assess that he has the best case for morality. In which case we're stuck. He may or may not
Right.
have the best case, or it might just be not the best case. He might be lying. He might be the alien might be deceiving us. The alien might be, for example, he might have horrendous moral standards, and we won't be able to know. We won't be able to tell the difference. We are
Right.
so.
Exactly.
What not Harris, Qaiser Ahmed is literally suggesting there. The logical implication is complete moral ignorance, complete moral devoidness. Yeah, and arguably that's almost like it's funny because it's almost like a nihilistic position. He's saying humans are nihilists. He's
Right.
saying he alongside Harris is probably incapable of assessing, Islamic morality, because if he, well, to be honest, let me just back down, slow down a little bit there, because we don't know exactly the reason why he's saying we can't assess that moral framework. But I would bet
No,
any money that,
when he's
yeah,
saying we as an
yeah,
atheist, basically, right?
mm,
You're taking
yeah,
we as
yeah.
an atheist, basically, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
but exactly. But he doesn't articulate exactly what it is, but I think it's to do with the subjectivity. Yeah, but he is also implicated in that, because what he's saying is that human beings, when he says atheist, he means human beings separately from God cannot make moral rules because it's all subjective. But by virtue of that, to be logically consistent, he is a human being, and he cannot also assess the case that God presents for objective morality, because he is a subjective being. He has his own values, right? And he can't, using his knowledge, assess whether or not what God is presenting is correct, right, moral, just, good. Because what does he have to use to do that? He has to, first of all, use his own judgments, that this is good,
Right.
this
I
is
mean,
bad.
at the end of the day, I mean, what you mean, and I just want to clarify it if it's not already clear. What you mean
Mm.
is the point number 2. He's accusing atheists that you cannot come to raising moral questions because your morality is based on subjectivity. But at the same time, on number 3, the same is happening, but it is a little bit more implicit. It's not explicit, but it is implicit, basically, that the morality that we judge to be objective when it comes to Islam is still objective in that sense. Have I got it right, or you wanna correct it?
Yeah, kind of. What I'm trying to say is mainly if he is saying that human beings cannot assess God's morality, yeah, atheists can't assess God's morality, then we cannot assess whether God's morality is correct. As simple as that. If we are morally ignorant, yeah, then we can't assess God's morality. Basically, what he's saying is that because morality is subjective, moral assessments are subjective, we can't have an objective framework. But by that implication, he can't have a moral framework either, because he ultimately has to assess God's morality using subjective expectations and values and so on. Or if he doesn't, even if he doesn't make that judgment, I'm sure if you ask him, can you determine morality on your own without input from God, and he will say no. And I would say, ask him, why can't you? Because God is the only source. But then again, we go back into the alien problem. I think this is a very good analogy. If an alien came to this planet and spoke a particular language, right? Let's say it's, I used the example of English before, I'll use a different one. Let's say it's Zulzulu. Zulzulu is an alien language. Obviously, we're not going to be able to understand it. Right. Now, how would you know that he's speaking Zulzulu to like a competent standard or a basic standard or to a deprived standard? We won't know, because nobody speaks Zulzulu, right? We have no independent way to assess or verify that this alien is a competent Zulzulu speaker. It's the same with God. If none of us have the ability to assess a case of morality, or we can't assess or examine God's morality, then how do we know that God is giving us the right moral commands?
Yeah, but don't they try to circumvent this objection by saying that God's nature is moral nature, basically, and the morality is an integral part of that nature?
Yeah, that's internally incoherent for the theist, because by doing that, they're already kind of saying, they're giving up the fact that they can't assess God's morality. They can. It's implicit in that approach, implicit in that methodology.
I agree with that point.
They assume. They have to know what benevolence is, and benevolence is a good thing, and therefore the criteria for goodness is benevolence, right? And it goes into that Plato stuff that we talked about. You know, they look at God and go, well, I can actually know that God is good because he's benevolent. But what is benevolence? Well, benevolence is good, but why is it good? And you have to have an understanding. You have to have an understanding of benevolence. Right? And that benevolence is morally good. You have to presume that already. Once you presume that, and then you ascribe it to this deity and go, oh, since that deity possesses that characteristic, therefore it's good. So, in other words, it's a contradiction if you do that.
This objection kind of struck to me as a lot of mental what do you call gymnastics, basically, in a sense, because you have to do a lot of mental gymnastics to say that this is the innate characteristic of a good God, basically. And then you're right when you say that what is benevolence, and then why is benevolence good, and then you say because it's in the nature of God. And that becomes a problem, because then you can ask, how do you know it is in the nature of God? You just don't know. You just have to Any conversation regarding trying to assess the good will assume that you already understand what good is. Right. If you already understand what good is, then you've already conceded that you don't need God to understand what good is. Exactly. Yeah. Right. But if you don't understand what good is, then any conversation regarding benevolence, courteousness, compassion that's in God, it's just
white noise, because you don't have a language to assess whether this is
Right,
good.
and
maybe
there is an evil god which commands you something which might for you sound like benevolence, basically, but it is not. I mean, because you don't have a language to understand what is benevolence, basically, as you said.
Exactly. Yeah. And therefore, as you said, maybe that's just evil. And well, either maybe exactly. It could be any shade of any evil or good. But again, our language breaks down, because when we're talking about evil, we kind of know what it is, right? We kind of have some shared upon meaning of evil. We have a shared upon meaning of benevolence.
Right.
But if again, these are assumptions that whether Qaiser will go down this route. But if he starts saying that we can't know that benevolence is a good thing, we can't know that, like if I make a case that, oh look, you can have an atheistic morality. It's whatever a benevolent person would do, right? And he says, no, that's just subjective. You're subjectively assigning goodness, moral goodness with benevolence. You're subjectively assigning normativity to the concept of benevolence. Anybody can disagree with you and say, no, I like malevolence. Well, the question is then, you're doing that as well. Here, Qaiser would probably acknowledge that we understand something by the meaning of benevolence to be particular things. It's not like a vague word. We understand what benevolence means. And but he'll be saying that although you understand what benevolence means, it's not morally good. So although benevolence means like being charitable, altruistic, these things are not morally good, because as soon as you say it's good, you apply a value term to it and it's subjective. Well, okay, that's fine. Here he conceded that we can understand benevolence, but the evaluation of benevolence as good is the error that the atheist is making. But him being a human also has to do that, right? He has to make a valuation of benevolence, God's benevolence.
Right.
He has to say this is good, right? And if God said it's good, then how do you know it is good, right? What criteria are you using to think it is good? We've discussed in the past before, Hume's problem of the is-ought fallacy. I don't know if he's going to raise that is-ought distinction. Also, is is useful here, because if the idea is that anybody can decide any morality if they want on atheism and just go with it, you can do that under theism as well. You can disagree with God. You can make your own value judgment, and you can choose what you want to do.
Right.
There is no.
I think Madhan, just plug in one example, and this is one case that I think we talked about last time as well, and you made a very valid point that the is-ought problem is still there, because no matter what God says, you still have to there's no ought to it. Basically, there is no ought to it. And the prime example of that is Iblis. That's Satan, right? When God told him to bow down to Adam, basically, right? And he said, no, I won't, basically. So he knows what God is, what God wants, and what is moral, what is immoral, and yet he didn't he didn't behave the way God wanted him to, basically. So there is an ought problem, right? You're still not ought to do what you told, right?
What it basically means, there's no objective ought, and they get around that by saying divine command theory provides the objective ought because it's independent to humans and it comes from a God. But the same problem remains as the philosopher J.L. Mackie has made. God's command imperative has no command to follow it, right? So if you go down the route that you need a command out of humans in order to generate an objective ought. Well, the command imperative that God throws out itself doesn't have any duty or imperative to be followed. And if that had a duty or imperative to follow, then what about the new imperative and duty? That needs another imperative and a duty to follow, and it goes to an infinite regress, meaning the is-ought problem is probably insolvable. And furthermore, because God is also a subjective mind or mentality, his command is probably indistinguishable from my command, right? And because God is although God is an all-powerful being, omnipotent being, and so on, it seems as though the is-ought problem, the Hume's is-ought issue, is a logical problem. It's trying to turn a square into a triangle. And since we've acknowledged in the last couple of streams, God can't do the logically
logical
impossible.
contradictions, right?
Yeah. And so therefore, you can't turn something that is impossible into something possible, and that's the issue that Qaiser faces as well.
Right.
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, I think this is a fairly well clarification of this position, but I'm pretty sure if somebody has any problem understanding this, they can ask us or whatever in the stream joining, or if not, maybe write a comment and let us know if they don't understand any part of this conversation. We are trying, Madan and I are trying to keep the conversation or the discussion simple, but once we get into the nitty-gritties, it's quite possible that sometimes we are not as clear in using our terms, but yeah. So let's move on, Madan. Okay.
Sure.
because they have absolutely no sense of morality कि वो होती क्या है. Then तीसरी बात ये कि इस्लाम जो है वो मोरालिटी का बेस्ट केस प्रेजेंट करता है. मैं अक्सर अपनी स्ट्रीम्स में कहता रहता हूं कि हम जब इस्लाम की बात करते हैं तो हमारा मतलब ये नहीं होता कि 1400 साल पहले एक मजहब आया. हमारा ये व्यू है, हमारा ये ईमान है कि 1400 साल पहले इस्लाम मुकम्मल हुआ, which is to say कि इस्लाम से पहले बहुत सी इस्लामी किताबों में आपको मोरालिटी मिल जाएगी, बहुत सी ऐसी किताबों में मिल जाएगी जो लोगों ने खुद लिखी है मुख्तलिफ मज़ाहिब के, जहां जहां भी आते रहे, लेकिन चलिए उसमें डिस्टोर्शन वगैरह होती रही, लेकिन कुछ ना कुछ उसमें जो ओरिजिनल कंटेंट है वो बचा रहा, तो हमें मोरालिटी वहां से मिल सकती है.
So one of the things that Qaiser is talking about is that this is not the view that Islam started 1400 years ago, but Islam has been there since a long time, since the time of Adam and all those, and then there were different books that were sent down through different prophets and messengers, and they still contain moral injunctions and moral codes for humans to behave at that time, but those books kept getting corrupted from time to time, and he's pointing a finger towards biblical texts, basically Torah and Injil, basically. Basically Old Testament and New Testament. And then he said there were also some books written by humans, not God per se, and I'm thinking still he's pointing towards Bible, because most of the biblical text is supposedly written by humans, and nobody, at least from the biblical scholarship, claims that those are the direct word of Yahweh or God or whatever you want to call it, right?
Starting with Islam, हम ये क्वेश्चन वगैरह होती है मोरालिटी मिल जाएगी, बहुत सी ऐसी किताबों में मिल जाएगी जो लोगों ने खुद लिखी है मुख्तलिफ मज़ाहिब के, जहां जहां भी आते रहे, लेकिन चलिए उसमें डिस्टोर्शन वगैरह होती रही, लेकिन कुछ ना कुछ उसमें जो ओरिजिनल कंटेंट है वो बचा रहा, तो हमें मोरालिटी वहां से मिल सकती है. Starting with Islam, हम ये कहते हैं कि मोरालिटी ऑब्जेक्टिव होती है, लेकिन इसको सब्जेक्टिवली इंटरप्रेट किया जा सकता है.
So here's a very important point that he's trying to make here, that, and this is something that we already spoke about probably, and he says that in Islam, morality is objective, but morality, you can read it on the slide basically, right? Morality can be subjectively interpreted, and we're fine with that, I think, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
हम एजेंट्स हैं, हम इंटरप्रिटेशन करते हैं. इंटरप्रिटेशन के फर्क का मतलब ये नहीं होता कि हम जो मोरालिटी की जो ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टेट है हम उसको डिनाई करते हैं, क्योंकि सब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी ये होती है कि मेरी मर्जी है, ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी ये है कि मुझे मोरालिटी की ये समझ आई है. दो लोग इख्तिलाफ भी अगर करें तो वो भी एक ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टैंडर्ड को की तरफ रेफर करके इख्तिलाफ कर रहे होते हैं, अदरवाइज इख्तिलाफ करने की कोई वजह नहीं है.
So he's saying that for subjective moralists, they have a subjective morality, and when they differ, it's their subjective take. But when two, say, objective moralists disagree, they are not disagreeing about the objective of the morality, but the subjective interpretation of the morality. I'm not quite sure that I understand this point, or do I? If I take this point pretty, I understand this point basically very well, basically, because if you're first thing is you have to really clarify, you have to really establish whether the morality you're talking about is really objective, basically, right? And then when you say you can have differences within, say, let's say Christians disagree with both of them, Christians and Muslims, both believe in objective morality, let's say, right? But there are a lot of differences between them, right? So it's between the interpretation they are saying, or maybe even within the Islamic text, if there are moral injunctions, two of them might disagree, but the objective morality still stands. Basically, let's take an example for just to make it clear. There is a case for slavery. There is a mention of slavery in Islam. It is in Quran. It is in Hadith text and all that thing. But there are different interpretations to it. So, do you think that there is an objective injunction within slavery that objectively it is wrong or right? What is the objective injunction here for morality in Islam? I'm not quite sure. Do you want to expound on that?
An objective injunction.
Right. Is there an objective, not injunction, maybe
What do you mean
injunction?
by injunction?
Maybe injunction is the wrong word I'm using. Maybe
Yeah.
an objective, what do you call, a statement? Not really statement, but basically, is it described objectively, basically? Slavery.
Is it described objectively? I don't know what you mean exactly. Yeah. What do you
So
mean?
let me try to clarify.
Yeah.
When you read Quran, do you think that the moral code for slavery in Islam
Yes.
is it denied objectively or is it approved objectively? Is what I'm asking basically. Is there an objective when you say, okay, sorry, maybe I put it the wrong way. When you consider that it has come from a certain God,
Okay.
does that make it objective in that sense or not?
Yeah. Well, because I don't see how God can make something objective. It depends on what level you mean it's objective. So, if you mean resolving the problems of normativity, oughts, imperatives, commands, you must do this, you should do that, which is Hume's problem, trying to get an is from an ought, then I don't think any God can make anything objective irrespective of what he does or says. Because
but at least yeah. So the point I'm trying to make it, and probably I'm being unsuccessful so far.
Is there something in the outlook?
Just pointing, just giving a direction. So we haven't reached to the odd part yet, right? Forget about the odd part, right? And is a prescription good enough to call it objective? And you probably already answered that.
No, I don't know what you mean. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand how a prescription makes it objective any more than a lawmaker laying down through a parliamentary body or a legislative body and passing a law, and that becomes part of the institutional structure of an institution. You can collectively come to agreement and have some rules and pass some laws. Or you can have a dictator, an individual person who makes some laws. It doesn't necessarily that he prescribes or the body prescribes as what you ought to do. None of those things actually make something that is subjective into objective. And furthermore, no, prescribing things doesn't make it objective. I think the whole point here might be that God prescribing things makes things objective. But I think I've already spoke about why that can't happen.
Right. You already pointed that out. Basically,
anybody who's listening to this, there is a stream that we did. Was it 2 streams ago where we talked about Plato's dilemma, and they might want to look into that. I won't discuss it in this review because of it's already been discussed quite broadly. You might want to go back onto that, read about Plato's dilemma elsewhere as well. That really resolves that issue. Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's move on then.
देन हम ये समझते हैं कि हम अपनी मोरालिटी को खुदा की ज़ात में हम ग्राउंड करते हैं और फिर मैं कुछ एग्जांपल्स रखूंगा इस्लामिक मोरालिटी के हवाले से जो मैं उम्मीद कर रहा था कि हारिस सुल्तान साहब एथियस्टिक मोरालिटी की भी हमें एग्जांपल्स देंगे लेकिन जैसे मैंने कहा कि वो तो हमारी एक हसरत ही रही एंड आई वुड इमेजिन कि एथियस्ट की भी हसरत ही रहेगी इस पे.
So do you want to talk about any of these points? Morality is objective. Morality can be subjectively interpreted. Morality is grounded in God, basically. And I think we already expounded on these points, basically. You already talked about these points pretty much, right? But if you want
Yeah. I mean, I'll just quickly hint a few things on, morality is grounded on God, because that completely makes it subjective to God. Yeah. So I don't. These terminologies, like stuff like grounded on God, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? If you think about it, it seems like it makes sense, but it isn't, because he needs to explain what he means by grounded. Usually by grounded, it means to reduce it to a particular level of explanation, or so I can ground, for example, the table down to its subatomic level and explain it, right? So that's kind of what it means, this kind of emergence from lower phenomena to higher phenomena, or downwards, higher phenomena, downwards to lower phenomena. Usually that's how it's used. In philosophy, grounding is actually been very unclear. They try to mean is, we have a comment from Kylie Bilal there, I think.
Right, Kylie Bilal is here.
Yeah.
Hey, Kylie Bilal, how are you, man?
Yeah. So to say grounded is to say that it's anchored in the will of God or in the characteristics of God, right? And I'm not sure how morality can be anchored in the will of God, because will of God is subjective as well. In the characteristics of God, it becomes such that all the issues with atheistic subjective morality becomes apparent again for mainly the theist. It basically, to be consistent, it will be consistently applicable to the theist as well, because if the idea is that any moral standard, any non-moral thing that you provide, so a non-moral thing would be something like an act of vicious, let's say somebody hitting somebody over the face. Now somebody would say that that is immoral, right? But those are much of that is non-moral itself, in the sense that there is a weapon, there's a person, these are all objective properties, and there's no subjective value there. The subjective value comes from the eye of the beholder, who looks at all these events, the punching, the kicking, and describes these non-moral events with a subjective value, makes a decision. Now, if morality is grounded in a non-moral property of God, so it's something that is about him, then that is committing the same crime, right? It's the Hume's issue again. You can't go from non-moral stuff to values. You can't go from an is to an ought, or a normative statement. It could very well be just like I might have a table, and that table might be green. Well, the greenness is grounded in the table, right? Yeah, but it doesn't follow that I ought to follow or imitate the table. That's a subjective value that I'm bringing. Or it doesn't follow that it's a description of the table is, but there's no ought. So in order to get to the real meat of it, the ontological case, you have to derive an ought from the is. So the fact that the table, the greenness is grounded in the property of the table, you can't derive an ought from that. And the same thing for God. If God has some properties that are built into him, how does that make sense? How do we make an ought out of that?
Yeah, I think that is-ought problem is the main stumbling block for this whole question that we are, or basically the objection that we are raising against Qaiser, right? I mean, everything is perfectly fine. Maybe we already argued about that as well, that how you come to know whether God is good or not, right? I mean, whatever your God is benevolent or not, or and then the second problem is the is-ought problem. I mean, okay, let's assume for the sake of conversation that we somehow come to know that God is really good and it's in his nature, his or her, or whatever you want to call it. We still have this is-ought problem. We're still stuck at that, basically, in a nutshell. And what he means by grounded, I think, is you pretty clearly explained that maybe he's using the terminology, but his point is probably that it's in the nature of God, but it doesn't still take us anywhere, in a sense.
Yeah, because it's very unclear, because what is God? then what is in the nature of God? These things they seem like we know what we understand by these. They're incomprehensible, but they're not. They're actually quite very vague, because even God itself is hard to define. What is a deity? And then to say something is in the nature of a deity, what does that even mean? Yeah,
Right.
I can say it's in the nature.
This is like. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I can say the color green is in the nature of the table. What does that mean? The nature of the table, like what? It's clearer to say the color green is a layer on top, a layer of paint over the table. Now it's a bit clearer. But when you say the color green is in the nature, within the nature of the table, it's spooky, right? It's unclear and ambiguous. And we shouldn't let theists get away with this sort of ambiguous language, because that when things are unclear, then the case for morality is going to be unsubstantiated, or at least weak. The final thing I would say is that you still have the problem of evil to deal with, right?
Right.
Even if we can somehow determine that God is benevolent in certain individual actions, let's say, yeah, or he comes to us and we see that he's benevolent. If we know he originated the entire universe, he has to explain and solve the problem of evil somehow, right? And the problem of evil is basically, how do you explain all this suffering and evil and aberrance and heinous crimes and disastrous natural events, and the suffering includes animal suffering. Yeah.
Right.
How do we reconcile this otherwise completely alternative reality?
God, basically,
yeah, with a merciful, just, compassionate, benevolent God. How do we mix that? And that needs to be solved as well. So, whilst it's true that the atheist has to support a case for atheistic morality, the Islamic.
Madan, we have a huge chunk of material to talk about. I mean, these problems. I mean, we can do perhaps a single stream on animal suffering, and we should do that basically sometime.
Yeah. So
all these topics are single stream topics. Each one of these, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And Qaiser has an uphill battle, to be honest, because he has to prove all those things, right? And I'm sure he can't do this in a lot of time. In which case, his case will always be technically insufficient, although practically we don't expect him to be able to do that in 1 hour. But technically, it's always going to be insufficient, I would think, because this requires troves of essays and writings, and to solve. And furthermore, he has another.
Okay, seems like Madan has dropped out, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask Khayali Palav to come in. Khayali Palav, I'm posting this, and we are Khayali Palav. If you'll have to pardon me, we're gonna run one. You are still will be in the stream, and we'll talk to you. But let's finish this review up until a certain point, and then we are all going to talk about some of these issues, if you're okay with. And please do join, by the way. Yes, I have posted the link here. And yeah, I think Mahadan has been having this issue for a long time now. Somehow Mahadan,
I'm back.
Yes, you're back. I think your internet problems need to be resolved, mate.
Oh, it's not. It wasn't my internet. I'm on my phone, you see, and my digitizer this time is my digitizer is in a very poor condition. And so what sometimes happens, very rare, but it starts selecting. When a digitizer is malfunctioning, it starts pressing things on its own, and what happened is the screen shifted and changed.
Okay.
My internet's been fine. Yeah.
All right. No worries. Yeah, I think we'll get over. I already posted the link, and Khayali is gonna join in. And yeah, sure, Khayali, join in. We always love talking to you. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm pretty sure that that's what Mahadan thinks as well. And but I'll let him speak for himself rather than speaking for him. Let's carry on, Madin, right? Yeah, as you just mentioned before dropping off, that it's going to be an uphill battle for Qaiser to, defend his position. And especially in probably 1 hour, as you said, it's quite possible. But once analyzed deeply, I think this it opens
Yeah,
up
I
like a
mean,
can of worms, basically.
the other thing is that in terms of when you say there is no atheistic morality, he's not engaging with any of the philosophers within philosophy writing on atheistic morality or just morality in general, because there's lots of arguments, not just naturalistic arguments, but non-natural arguments. They don't try to reduce morality to naturalism. There are natural schools, like, for example, Platoism or Platoistic variants. They're not necessarily Platonic, but they're similar to it. And there's a lot of work on that, and that's the kind of momentum that's shifting right now. That morality is grounded on in certain concepts that we access through epistemically accessed through reason. Right? If you probably heard me talk about it in the past, they are analytical truths. If you've heard of the analytical synthetic distinction,
Right.
they are analytical truths, like very similar to mathematics. And there's an entire field of philosophers talking about this. And I'm assuming these Islamic proponents, who are supposedly meant to be sincere inquirers of the truth, they probably never heard of it. They're not going into it. And Qaiser would have to, first of all, uncover those arguments and debunk each and one of them. That's his obligation, right? Just like if I said there is no hadith saying this, then I need to go into the hadith traditions and learn hadith science, and examine the hadith and show that there's no such hadith. Well, if he's saying something about atheistic morality, he has to actually go through secular Western philosophy and go through the various different atheistic moral cases that have been presented. Especially today, I don't expect him to do all of them, but at least some of them, and the most popular ones. But he shows I would assume, again, he's going to probably show complete ignorance of that in this. And without doing that, I think, at least technically speaking, he would fail in his quest. I don't expect him to do that in a 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour debate, but I would expect some, at least in his private time after the debate, to show that, look, I engage with all these philosophers as well, and they're wrong as well. But if he doesn't do that, then either he's unaware of that these things exist, or he's deliberately choosing not to engage with it.
I don't think he knows that these things exist, because see, I'm probably doing an ad hominem, and which is something not really right. But yeah, I mean, I have seen a lot of these. You are also aware of these IRA gang at the at what's that park?
Sorry?
What's that park where these guys
Hyde Park.
Muhammad Jaban,
Hyde Park.
Right, Hyde Park, right?
Yeah,
These guys assemble, and they have read only superficial level philosophy. I mean, you have a pretty deep understanding of philosophy, so you can claim to be, deeply understanding philosophy. I don't claim that, because my understanding is pretty much superficial, and maybe a little bit while I have talked to you here and there, basically. But these guys are probably of the same ilk, pretty much. I think Qaiser. So I'm not expecting him to go that deeper in debunking these atheistic arguments that you are talking about, pretty much. Anyway, just taking a pause, Mahadin, welcoming Khayali Pulav, welcome.
Hi, Mahadin. Hi,
How are
Fadi.
you doing?
Thank you for taking me on. I'm good.
Good. Always
All
nice
right.
to talk to you. Always nice to talk to you.
Kylie, did you want to say something? Because I think you said you want to say something about this is a straw man.
Yeah, I mean, as he just mentioned, that Qaiser never actually, and I think that would be his position or his, tactics throughout the debate and even after the debate, that he seems to continuously just focus on the fact that, not the fact, sorry, on the statement that there is no atheistic morality, and he would not engage with any of the atheistic, moral,
Yeah, I
frameworks
think
or
Mahadin has
non-religious frameworks. they continue to do that.
Sorry, Kelly, finish it. Problem. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to say that. So I think that would be his tactics throughout the debate, probably, because even after the debate, their, whole, uh, I would call it a tantrum, has been that we win because Harris declared that there is no atheistic morality. So there is nothing. He didn't mention any atheistic moral framework, whereas he actually does mention a few, frameworks afterwards in his rebuttals or cross questioning sessions, but they are
Oh, I
just
see.
gonna continue with the same position.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So Harris eventually does mention a framework. Did you say?
Yeah, he will. I mean, he
Okay.
actually does not prepare any slides, but what he do is he briefly touches upon several different, like consequentialism, or a few different frameworks which are used
He
for
talked about
which come under
deontology,
atheism.
consequentialism, value
Exactly.
ethics, and all those things. Yes, he did. Martin, I think
So he does touch upon.
we heard that in his opening statement as well. Maybe.
Yeah. But he didn't actually go and justify how
Yeah, he didn't go deeper into details, and that's what we are ruining the fact basically, that he should have made maybe 3 or 5 slides or something like that. Just
I think then for
showcasing
debate, I think for debate purposes, Qaiser's right. He might be right to actually say that he has not made a case, right? It might seem a little bit rhetorical, but but at the same time, when then Qaiser takes the opportunity to make a case for Islamic morality, seeing as given I might be adding a layer of sophistication that is not that these people are not even aware of, right? Because the case for Islamic morality is very similar to the case for the Christian morality. You're trying to defend divine command theory. You're trying to defend it against Plato's dilemma. You're trying to show that it solves the Izot problem. You try to show how grounding means and how it reduces to his character. These are very technical issues, and maybe I'm just thinking that I expect it to be on that level. Maybe
I'm totally with you on that basically. And when you're doing these academic discussions, and at a very when you call it at least to a very high intellectual level, you have to tread your ground pretty cautiously basically, and you have to really be cautious of what words you're using. And if you're using a new word or something that doesn't really fit into that definition, you have to really be cautious in defining it. And these are the these are the finer points that we are picking him on, and we have a right to do so, I think, at least.
Well, given that we're doing a review, we are giving him enough charity to say, look, we don't expect you to talk like a PhD in philosophy. Furthermore, we probably don't expect you to, lay out a complete case for theistic morality that involves, for example, resolving this problem of evil and everything. However, although we don't expect you to do that, and we're giving you that charity, we're saying, we don't expect you to do that, but in principle, in theory, that is what it would take. And maybe not over one presentation, but over time, at least. Yeah?
Right. I agree with you. All right.
Yeah.
Shall we move on then to the next part of this? I think we still have a lot of ground to cover.
Kylie, do you want to say anything?
No, I think you guys can continue.
Okay.
You guys have covered almost everything.
कि हमें एथिस्टिक मोरालिटी के 2-4 एग्जांपल्स मिल जाएं। मैं क्या कहूं इससे ज़्यादा। एनीवे, दी ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी, हमारा केस ये है कि ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी ऑब्जेक्टिव होती है, तो उसमें सब्जेक्टिव इंटरप्रिटेशन की गुंजाइश होती है, हम उसको डिनाई नहीं करते। लेकिन हम जब कहते हैं कि मोरालिटी ऑब्जेक्टिव होती है, तो मोरालिटी चूंकि ऑब्जेक्टिव है, देयरफॉर जितने भी डिसएग्रीमेंट्स हैं, इंक्लूडिंग दिस डिबेट, आर पॉसिबल। यहाँ पे भी हम डिसएग्री कर रहे हैं, तो चूंकि हम किसी एक ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टैंडर्ड को सामने रखते हैं, तो ही डिसएग्री करते हैं। हारिस सुल्तान साहब ने बहुत सी ऐसी बातें कही हैं जो गलत हवाले दिए हैं, ज़ईफ़ हदीसें आज भी कोट की हैं, वो करते रहते हैं। लेकिन अगर उन सबको ठीक भी मान लिया जाए और फिर ये कहा जाए कि ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी नहीं है, तो उसका सिंपल सा जवाब ये है कि भाई हमारा मज़हब हमारे लिए, तुम्हारे लिए, तुम्हें चीज़ अच्छी नहीं लगती तो तुम्हारी ज़ाती ओपिनियन है, ये हमारी ज़ाती ओपिनियन है, वैसे तो गुंजाइश नहीं बनती। लेकिन अगर हारिस सुल्तान को एतराज़ है, तो फिर हारिस सुल्तान को साबित करना पड़ेगा कि उनके पास एक ऑब्जेक्टिव मोरालिटी का स्टैंडर्ड है, ऑब्जेक्टिव स्टैंडर्ड है, जिसकी रोशनी में वो हमें रखें।
So, Madin, the one point that's that stood out here, again, Qaiser Bhai is asking Harris that if he doesn't have an objective standard, how can he criticize Islamic morality? I think we have talked about it earlier as well, right? That so I don't think that part needs to be covered. Anybody who's listening to this probably can go back 5-10 minutes back in our stream, and we have made a clarification on this. Why can somebody still question your morality even if he doesn't have an objective basis for his morality, basically? And I think in a very, very nutshell, I can say, because there could be internal inconsistencies within those moral.
Exactly. So if God claims to be good, and he allows slavery, let's say, that seems to be an issue, right? And we don't need to. You can be a nihilist. You can have no morality whatsoever and raise that critique that Islamic morality is contradictory or something.
So, Madan, only one objection somebody might raise at this point, that when somebody can objectively prove that God is good, I don't know how that would happen, but let's assume that somebody would prove that God is definitely good, or you can objectively prove that God is good. Then if he says he commands slavery, doesn't that mean that slavery becomes good?
Yeah. In principle, if we know for a fact that God is good, right? And then he commands something that is like slavery, and it looks to be contradictory to what we expect from a good God, let's say. But we also know that this is a super intelligent being. We also know that we might have compared to his imagination and abilities, we are inferior. So if he's commanding like a command that seems to be atrocious to us, it could very well be a good thing. But that kind of begs the question. Although I can grant that in theory, that's the whole mission, right? That is the whole problem. You can't do that. You can't assess God's morality if you are a subjective being, right? If you are limited in intelligence, limited in capabilities. This is, by the way, an issue that is also paramount in considering artificial intelligence these days. As they say, artificial intelligence is going to grow enough intelligence to become this super intelligent thing that we cannot control. But why can't we control it? Because we can't assess whether one of the criticisms is that we can't assess whether what it's doing is in our best interest or not, because its knowledge would be so surpassed us that we can't control or regulate or monitor or examine or understand it. And therefore, we can never tell that this is the right thing, the wrong thing. That's one of the dilemmas, and that same dilemma is applicable to a deity. In principle, yes, if we know it's a good being, therefore, if it commands something like slavery, it might be that we're just getting it wrong. Slavery is right, we just don't get it. But how do we know God is actually right about that? How do we know God is actually benevolent? How do we know God is genuinely caring and compassionate and not just? And that's in that sort of limited place where we are. Because Qaiser can't do that. Qaiser can't go and be a god to assess God, because that assumes you have to be a god. And if he can't do that, then he has the same evidence that we have. He thinks God is benevolent. He has an understanding of benevolence. But then we have something like slavery. So now we have to go, okay, what's going on? Either slavery is actually good, or there's a contradiction that God isn't benevolent. And that's the problems that it creates, right? Because if God claims to be benevolent, and we can never with certainty determine that he is benevolent, then the fact that this being claims to be benevolent and then commands slavery is probably evidence suggesting that he isn't benevolent. Just like if you came to me and said you were the most compassionate person in the world, and then chopped somebody's head off, yeah, right. I probably think, yeah, look, you're probably not compassionate, yeah, based on what you just did there. That's what I mean.
Right. So the problem is getting to the point where you can say God is good. That's our basic main hurdle, basically here. Once we, if we assume that we get to that point somehow, which seems almost insurmountable, basically. I mean, that's how I understand you're talking about, and that's how I understand it is. Basically, it is a problem that is almost insurmountable. You just can't get there. But if you somehow got there, God knows how, basically, but you got there, then this problem will be solved. But unless until that's shown to be done, this
Yeah.
is still a problem, basically. This is still a
Exactly.
problem.
Yeah. I mean, because you can't do this, because if you can do this, then for theism it creates other problems, like the problem of evil. One of the things about the problem of evil is that one of the best defenses, the current best
Yeah,
defenses
I
against.
think just I think Khayali also mentioned Euthyphro's dilemma. I think
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. But what I'm saying in problem of evil, there's something like called skeptical theism. Other people have heard of it. It tries to say that we cannot judge goodness or wrongness, badness or goodness, and so on, rightness and wrongness, but badness and goodness, based on using our own limited intelligence, because God is this infinitely powerful being, infinitely knowledgeable being, and our finite imagination cannot judge the infinite abilities of God. But that, to say that you can, when you say, what if we determine that God is benevolent? Well, that means you can, to some extent, assess God. And that would be letting go of, I would say, skeptical theism, which maybe I'm going in the wrong direction here, talking about something, too many issues there, too many open issues. But
Right. Let's get back onto the Khayali, you want to add something quickly? Then we'll move on to.
Yeah, of course. As Martin said, there are so many things we can talk about
Khayali, your
over this,
voice is
but
kind of coming from far away. I think is your mic
okay.
closer to your mouth?
Is it better now?
I can
Hello?
hear you, but
Is
it's
it better?
slightly muffled. I can.
Okay.
Martin,
Okay.
can you
Let me
hear?
change.
Can you hear
Let me change my
Khayali
mic.
fine?
Let me change my mic.
Yeah, I think Madin's explanation about the problem of evil. I mentioned Euthyphro's dilemma, which I should not have, but I just saw the comment and then it just blurted it out.
No, this is all good. So if anybody's listening, these are necessary resources to assess the case for theistic morality. It is they need to overcome Plato's dilemma, which I don't think they have at all. And I don't think they ever will. It's a logical problem. It's just like Hume's problem, right? Hume's problem is a logical problem. Plato's dilemma is a logical problem for theism. But the thing is, theists have to solve Hume's problem and Plato's problem. yeah.
Right.
So it's actually more difficult, and then they've got the problem of evil, and so it's the impression that's made here is that atheistic morality is hard to defend, and theistic morality is just a smooth sailing. Absolutely not, right?
I totally agree.
Yeah, theistic morality has almost all the same problems as atheistic morality, but then further hurdles, including trying to assess an infinite being's morality, which is hard to do.
True.
Yeah.
Khayali, sorry. Khayali,
yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I'll just mention that I'd like to, if you guys have a stream on that topic anytime in the future, I'd like to discuss the contingency argument and how I think it disproves that God can be benevolent. So I would like to discuss that in future sometimes as well with you guys, and your opinion about the contingency argument as well. But yes, I mean the problem about as you mentioned, the skeptical. Martin, can you repeat that? The position.
Skeptical theism.
Skeptical theism. You're right. I mean, the concept of a benevolent God, because if you want to emphasize, or if you want to assert that yes, God is indeed benevolent, but yet you want to on the same you know with with the same side, you also want to say that we cannot judge whatever he does. It doesn't make sense. Then you also don't have any idea about what does a benevolent God even means. So yeah, you're right about that. I mean, you guys have covered almost everything, so I think I don't need to add anything further.
Madin seems to have dropped out again. Seems like some problem again. I think I see in private chat, I see Flywheel. I think he has left. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
I think we'll do a stream sometime later on contingency for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the basic argument, but that's contingency argument is pretty. Yeah, I think we'll do it. It's pretty commonly used by our fellow Muslim apologists, basically,
Yeah. I
right?
like that argument, by the way. I mean, a contingency argument is a good one. I think so, but it
Yeah, I think
doesn't.
I've gone to Yasser Nadim Al Wajidi's stream a few times, and then we have talked about it. I think
Mhm.
contingency, and then
Mm.
also Kalam cosmological, and then towards the end, that what I have got from him is that he doesn't believe that these arguments are going to shift his weight of whatever belief towards one way or the other. I mean, it's not going to if these were proven to be in favor of atheists or agnostics, he's still not going to lower his confidence in his belief. And then so we have stopped talking about these things, basically.
Who are you talking about, sorry?
So yeah, there's a very famous American mufti. His
Mm.
name is Yasir Nadim Al Wajidi, right?
Right.
And
American
I have
slash Indian,
gone
right?
to, huh?
American slash Indian.
So yeah, he's from a place called Devband, if I'm not wrong,
Mm.
and
Yes.
Devband is like one of the main schools of Khali, right? So
Yes.
here in India, and
Yes.
he probably is he graduated from one of those madrasas from there.
Yeah.
I'm not
He's a
quite sure,
mufti. Yeah,
and
he's a
he's a
mufti. So
mufti, and then
he's.
he's moved to the US. But he has these streams almost every Sunday at about 9:30 uh, 9:30 p.m. India time, and probably about I think what is it 9 p.m. Pakistan time, right? So what is it gonna be UK time? It's probably gonna be 5:30 p.m. UK time, Martin, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
So
think so.
I've spoken to him about these contingency arguments and Kalam cosmological argument, and towards the end of that, he said, even if you prove that your arguments are correct and they are in favor of atheists and agnostics, I'm not going to lower my confidence in my belief. And then so we have stopped talking about that pretty much, basically.
Mm.
Anyway, let's move on
So
to.
basically, he basically chooses to engage in kufar. What I mean is concealing oneself from the truth. Yeah,
Right,
that's what it
right.
means, right?
Uh-huh,
Denying the
uh-huh.
truth.
You're right.
So
Yeah,
applicable here.
Right.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah,
that's true. That's very true,
Delib-
actually. Yes.
Deliberately trying to conceal or you know
yeah.
undermining the truth.
Right.
Exactly.
And I have told him, I have honestly told him that if this is the case, he should not be using these arguments in converting anybody. I mean, he should not be using those arguments in convincing anybody, not converting. Sorry, I used the wrong word. Convincing anybody for any theistic case, basically, let alone Islam, right?
Mm. Mm.
Because if your belief is that, and then he said, I think one time he told me that uh, he has a case for Islam being right based on the Quran, basically. And
Mm.
so we haven't got to that point yet. So I haven't had a conversation with him on those points. Basically, I think that's the Quran's case is going to come, and Khayali, I think we have spoken about it already, and I'm pretty sure I at some point or the other I have spoken it with Mahadin as well. That Quran's
Mm.
case is basically whatever the stylistic and the number and all those whatever these apologists give, right? The miracles of the number 19, whatever number or whatever things, right? So
Yeah.
these for that, and
I
then
think, yeah, I think maybe we should do a few streams on stuff like that. I don't know if you want to. I know I heard that Kylie is capable in, the language side of things, and he may want to make a contribution. But we've not. I don't know.
I'm gonna ask Kali's
Yeah.
help in that if he wants to join us in doing such
Mm.
streams. I'm definitely willing to do it, Madin.
Mm.
Sure, sure. I'd love to be a part of.
Sure, sure. So we'll
I,
do
I-
this.
yeah, yeah. I do think though, like if these atheist proponents, when they debate the case against Islamic morality, I think they should. Do you know what they should do? They should obviously have their own atheistic case for morality, and a case for morality rather than leave it really vague like Harris. Also, attack theistic morality on the foundations of Euthyphro, on grounds of Hume's problem. That it doesn't circumvent the Humean problem. It's still subjective. All this stuff, but also make the Stephen Law case for evil God. That would be, I think,
Yeah,
a massive
that is an
assault.
amazing case. Yeah, that is an
Yeah.
amazing case.
Imagine if you make this sort of assault. At the
Yeah.
end, the theists will be completely flooded, and I think that would be a very strong case. Yeah.
Right.
I actually
I totally agree with you guys here.
I
Mhm.
actually, the very second call that, so the very first time that I joined any stream or I called in any stream was Qaiser Saab's. And the first time I asked him a question about Kalam cosmological argument. And the second time that I joined his stream, my actual topic was about the evil God. And my
Mm.
question was to him about why do you believe that God is not evil?
Mm.
So he jumped around quite a lot about this. So
Yeah.
he had he was for example, he asked me, why would you even consider it, because we according to law, I mean, it's kind of stupid what the position, the counter question that he was asking me. According to him, he was asking me that, why would we always assume uh, innocence. So why are you assuming that God would be evil? So I'm saying, no, I didn't say that God isn't evil. I'm saying
Wait, did he say
I'm not.
you assume innocence?
Yeah, yeah. He said
In a
we
court
assume
of
innocence
law,
under
his
law.
point
In
is
a
in a
court of
court of
law, we
law.
assume innocence. So
Yeah.
why
Wow.
are
See,
you?
that was his
Yeah,
objection.
this was his objection, and I was like, no, this is you. You guys are claiming that God is good. You guys have to prove it,
Yeah.
and there are reasons to believe that God can be evil. So just
Mm.
saying that there is a presumption of innocence in the court
I
of
think
law, that doesn't apply in this case.
Khali, if
That's
that
an
was
arbitrary standard, though.
that was
Yeah.
exactly the point. That is the dumbest
Yeah,
Yes.
counter
I mean,
I have heard, to be honest.
exactly. I mean, he gave a number of, I would say, stupid example. Like he said, do you presume that your wife is cheating on you? I said, no, I don't. But because we don't just go when we are living our lives. We don't do that. But that is not the question that I'm asking.
Yeah,
There are
yeah. I mean,
reasons. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, what the reason we have the presumption of innocence is because the vast. If first of all, it's completely arbitrary construct. It might not be
exactly.
right. First of all, it
Exactly. It
might not
might
be
not be
right.
right.
Yeah, presumption of
It's just
innocence
the
is
way we
something
do
that
it.
humans made. So
Exactly.
why is he using a subjective standard?
No,
Yeah, yeah.
Madan, let
That's
me
the funny
clarify.
part.
Just give me
Yeah,
1 minute for this,
yeah.
and I'll clarify why this is a good presumption. Innocence, before proven guilty, is a good
No, no, no.
presumption because
I agree it is. I agree it is. But what I'm saying, it's all, the reason it would be good because one of the main reasons is because you're going to have um,
yeah,
statistically
exactly. That's
speaking,
the point I was
most
talking about. This is like
yeah
if you can't see that there's plethora
yeah
of statistic in front of you,
yes
tens of billion of people in front of you, and you hardly hear of cases of murder and those
exactly yeah
statistically you see and you judge that,
yeah
then you presume you're not basing it on
yeah
just a airy fairy statistic. You have a good
yeah
statistic to base your presumption that not guilty
yes.
until proven guilty or
Furthermore,
something like that, right?
Furthermore, on the basis that you presented it there, or if the statistical outlook was different, then you might not think that. But at the same time,
Right.
this is what I mean, where the subjectivity of it comes in. Humans intentionally and deliberately design the system to be like this because of a principle called "it's better to let 10 guilty men go than to imprison one."
Exactly.
It's
Yeah, that's a,
it,
but
yeah
you can even imagine of a small world where, let's say, there are like only 1,000 people, but
mm,
almost 70% of those or 80% of those are
mm,
always warring or beating somebody or the other, right?
yeah
In their courts of law, if they really want to be just, then they might come up with something like guilty before proven innocent, and that won't be wrong to say if they really
It-
wanted to do that. But then
yeah, it
there has to be a
yeah,
statistic to support that case,
yeah,
right?
yeah, maybe
Even
like
in
if there's,
terms of God, you haven't given any
yeah.
statistic. You just don't have any single statistic to say
If
whether it's
anything, you
good
have the
or
problem of
evil.
evil. You have the problem of evil, right?
Right.
And that's yeah, and that's the way he has to deal with those arguments. An inductive case, like a probabilistic
Right.
statistical case of suffering around the world. And you can also say there's, as Stephen Lawbrooks points out, there's also a lot of happiness. And he's trying to say that it's
Yes,
compatible
yeah,
with
there
both a
is
good and a
equivalent
bad,
pretty much.
evil God, yeah, and so on. Sorry, you can't have an all evil God, you can't have an all good God because of the statistical evidence of ambiguity in the world, because it's not total suffering and it's not total goodness, it's somewhere in the middle. So that's what Stephen Law makes. And once you make that argument, you can't stick to presumption of innocence, because
Absolutely.
yeah, once you've made all those arguments, now you've got a different outlook. Because it's like going into a case and listening to entire case and still then retaining presumption of innocence. Well, no, because then you have to weigh the evidence. Presumption of innocence might be there at the beginning. Again, not for God, but even if you had to stretch the concept and apply, it might be there at the beginning. But after we made the case, it's no longer there. We have to then assess the evidence. But okay, yeah.
He did during the call, he did, sort of, maybe it slipped, but he said that,
Mm.
how can you even prove that God is good? How, how would you one even prove it? That those are sort of the exact words that he said. I'm just translating
Mm.
it in English. So he did sort of realize that it's quite, impossible to prove that God is good, because I think logically you cannot prove whether God is good. There is no way to prove it.
Mm.
and
Mm.
and one last argument that he presented was the ontological argument. And I told him that we cannot I mean, I don't have time to discuss it right now, but I can use that very ontological argument to prove that God is evil, if you're going to
Mm.
use the
Yes.
ontological argument.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
no, I think the same about the ontological argument. You can prove an evil God and a good God as
Right.
well. So yeah, yeah. Um, but these are very weak cases. The thing is, I'm always more persuaded that my points are right by listening to the theistic cases. Because when I hear the complete lack of understanding of what's going on, that's what raises my confidence that okay, these guys don't know what they're talking about. You know. So their
Right.
confidence in their beliefs has to be on some shaky foundation because they're not aware of what's going on.
Right. I was just asking Philo to probably, have a stream on the contingency argument, because I personally like that argument, and I'd like to know your views on that probably in another stream, and also how I think that contingency argument disproves that there can be a good God, if you want to go with the contingency argument.
Yeah, yeah. I think we should. We might go into that. Yeah, that sounds fine. I do think we are kind of not focusing on the the review now.
The
I think
review
Right.
stream. I was thinking maybe Madan, let's stop it till this
yeah.
point. Wherever we have definitely progressed to some point. We have
Mm.
covered almost like 13 or 14 minutes of his opening statement. We'll do another stream like part 5 or something like that, and then we'll cover the remaining of it.
Mm.
Probably we are going a little slower than we should, but then that's okay. I think we'll cover that maybe in the next stream, or if you want to move forward for another 10-15 minutes, maybe we can do that.
Mm. No, I think I think we've gone to the time that I wanted to get to. I thought let's stream for about 1 hour 30 minutes.
Right,
I'm
right.
okay to stay for 5-10 more minutes if you want. If you want to, but let's not focus on the debate. Then we can just make more comments about associated issues if you want.
Yeah, I mean, so just forget this the review for the timing and just
Mm.
talk about the issues. You're saying that's if I understand you right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, perfectly. And I think, Madan, what I would say is, Khali goes to some of these streams and then challenges them. I think you should also go. I mean, you're one of the you're one of the finest, you know, we have in terms of philosophical understanding, basically, right?
Right, right.
At least you are much better than I am, and I won't
Yes,
say
absolutely.
Khali thinks or not that way,
No,
but
no, absolutely, absolutely. Madan should, go and challenge them as well. I mean, I'd like to
right,
see
because
that.
you'll grab
Right.
them,
I'd like to
you'll grab their since you understand philosophy, you'll
Mm,
catch their inaccurate statements pretty quickly, right? And since
mm, mm,
you have been studying philosophy so deeply for such a long time, so
mm.
you'll do that. So when you get a chance, it's not a must do. What we are doing is pretty good, I think.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It's just I've never done that before. You see, I don't really go to streams to make contributions like that. You get it? This stuff is more like my type of thing, where we talk together on my own terms, on our own terms. But going into somebody else's stream, I've never done that. But maybe it's a joint endeavor. If you guys are pushing me to it, I might just do it. When you're free, maybe I'll go together, or something like
yeah,
that.
it's your comfort level. They
Yeah.
don't take two guys at the same time usually. I mean, they talk
Um,
one on one basically. I mean, not one on one.
one
You
on
are
five,
the only one, and they may have three or four guys, right?
three
So
or four or
that's
five
the
versus.
thing basically. It's just like
mm,
it happens in our streams sometime, right? Somebody
Yeah.
comes, Said Bhai comes
yeah.
in, right?
Yeah.
And so
And
yeah,
Philo, who would who would you recommend for Mahadin to, which stream would you recommend him to join?
I think both Kaisers and Mufti Wajidi's streams are decent enough. Kaiser Bhai, at least he says that he's more philosophically oriented and all those things. But I think
I don't think
in
so.
my experience, Wajdi Sahab is much more cordial in terms of his interaction, and I enjoy talking to him. I mean,
I think
Wajdi.
Mufti Sahib is a bit more. I think he's a bit more logically sound. Um, I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
find Mr. Saab's.
see, he the thing is, if you go and point a problem or logical problem to Wajdi Sahab, he'll always kind of come with certain solutions, some twisted solution to a certain problem that you pose to him, and you might not find it very satisfactory, but then he'll come up with those solutions that'll appeal to his audience basically. But that's the same is true with Kaisar Bhai as well, right?
Right, right. So why don't you recommend some English streams to him? Because I think the English speaking, uh, you know, uh, the Dawa groups are a lot more. I mean, at least they are a little bit more into the philosophical end.
They're a little
And
bit more nuanced is what you mean to say,
yes,
right?
yes,
And
I
I
do.
agree with your point. I do agree with
Yes.
your point. And I think when Mahadin and I have been talking about starting a blog for like past 4 or 5 years now. I think Mahadin
Mhm.
2018 or 19 we
Something
spoke.
like that. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we wanted to start a blog first, and then this COVID came in, and a lot of different things happened. I got busy with work, Mahadan got busy with his stuff and all that, and then all of a sudden then we uh, I'm gonna hello, just pausing for a second, I'm gonna add Flywheel to the conversation. Flywheel, welcome to the stream. How are you doing, mate?
Hello, I am audible.
Yes, you're audible very well. How are you
Okay,
doing?
okay,
Yes.
okay. Now I am good. Everything is okay right here.
Good, good. Okay, good. Good to have you back. Good to have you back. Let me finish my
Yes,
point. I was telling Khayali when we thought of doing this stream, then probably about 3 months back or 4 months back, Khayali, Mahadan, I told Mahadan that probably blog is not as good an idea to spread our point of view or whatever we have known. And Mahadan was always interested in disseminating the knowledge that he has, right? I mean, he was always willing to do it. So we said, okay, I'll be the second fiddle, and Mahadan, you be the primary guy who's gonna tackle. And what we wanted to do was that we wanted to deal with these problems, and especially to the diaspora of subcontinent, basically. I mean, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and we are still struggling because I think first stream, Madin, we had in slight bit broken Hindi, Urdu, and all that. But since then, we have been doing it in English, right? So that purpose is still not fulfilled yet. But I just wanted to tell Khayali that the main aim was to grab to bring these philosophical arguments to the audience of the subcontinent, which they usually don't hear, because these philosophical arguments are pretty common in Western diaspora, but then they are mostly in English or some other language, right? So these guys
Right.
don't get to hear or understand or see, so
Right. And
the point was to bring it to the subcontinent folks. But we
yeah,
are doing the same thing. We are doing it in English, right? So
yeah,
you,
yeah.
you
And I
see.
think English is in the best
I'm
medium
telling
for
Madin,
yeah.
maybe I'll teach you Hindi a little bit. Right.
So does Mahadan speak? I mean, his own native language, or
Yeah, I can speak Bengali. Yeah,
Okay.
Bangladeshi. Yeah. But I don't understand Urdu or Hindi. I mean, I understand a little bit of Urdu and Hindi, but I can't, not fluently, and I cannot even utter one word. But for Bengali, I can speak and understand, but can't write.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Flywheel,
yeah,
did
I
you
mean,
want to say something? Sorry, if you feel I want to.
No.
No,
continue. Yes.
Flywheel, do you want to say anything?
on which
Flywheel
topic? हाँ
bhai,
हाँ
please.
बोलिए.
Give your whatever you have in mind. You want to say something? You want to point out anything? Please go ahead.
क्या
कुछ
मतलब
कहना है
किस
आपको?
टॉपिक किस पर है मतलब?
टॉपिक ये जो रिव्यू, ये जो डिबेट थी ना हारिस सुल्तान और कैसर अहमद राजा साहब के बीच में, तो उसको हम रिव्यू कर रहे थे बेसिकली.
हाँ तो ये अच्छा उस दिन का वो जो बात चल रहा था वही ना.
हाँ, वो जो डिबेट है ना, वो हमारा रिव्यू तब से अभी ये फोर्थ पार्ट है उस रिव्यू का. और अभी हमने अभी सिर्फ कवर किया है हारिस सुल्तान का ओपनिंग स्टेटमेंट और कैसर भाई का ओपनिंग स्टेटमेंट में अभी हम करीब 15 मिनट्स इन के आसपास हैं. और अभी
अच्छा,
हमने
ये
उस पर ब्रेक लगा दी. हम ऐसे ही जनरल कॉन्वर्सेशन कर रहे थे बेसिकली.
47 मिनट तक चला है ना, दिख रहा है.
हाँ, नहीं 47 मिनट टोटल हो गया है बेसिकली, पर
हाँ.
उसमें वो ओपनिंग स्टेटमेंट अपना कैसर हारिस भाई का हो गया है और कैसर भाई का रफली अबाउट 14-15 मिनट के आसपास हो चुका है करीब, है ना. कुछ
नहीं,
आपको
मैं
कहना है उस डिबेट या कुछ और भी? अगर कोई क्वेश्चन है आपका मेरे लिए, महादिन के लिए या ख्याली के लिए या कोई भी?
नहीं, मैं डिबेट तो मैं देखा नहीं, लेकिन मुझे पता ये वही चीज निकलेगा. कुछ इसमें से निकलने वाला है नहीं ढंग का.
अच्छा, आप ये सोचते हो कि इसका कोई फायदा नहीं. सो महादिन, फ्लाईव्हील्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू इज
डिस्कशन का फायदा नहीं है.
हमारे
ये
डिस्कशन
डिबेट
का फायदा नहीं है, या जो उन दोनों के बीच में डिबेट हुई है उसका फायदा नहीं है?
डिबेट का मतलब
There's no point to it. Is that what he's saying?
So Flywheel,
लोग
he's
बाइस
saying,
होते हैं.
sorry, Madin is saying that. Sorry, Flywheel.
ऐसे में लोग बाइस होते हैं पहले से ही, डिबेट देखने से पहले से ही. तो वो पहले से उनका सबकॉन्शियस में फिट रहता है कि हमारा आदमी ही जीतने वाला है. तो इसलिए मुझे नहीं लगता कि इसमें रिजल्ट निकलेगा कुछ पॉजिटिव रिजल्ट.
Okay, Madin, what he's saying is that there's no point to debating because people have preconceived set of mindset, and then they won't change their mindset, and they would always root for their own person and won't take anything else. Basically, that's the gist of what he's saying. Flywheel, मैं आपको ये बता दूं, हम सभी लोग, सारे ही लोग, आप भी मेरे ख्याल से आप किसी रिलीजन में मानते हो या नहीं मेरे को नहीं मालूम, मैं पूछूंगा भी नहीं. बट हम सारे लोग जो हैं माइंड कहीं ना कहीं चेंज करते हैं. हमने भी सबने कहीं ना कहीं पढ़ा, किसी को सुना, किसी से जाके हम समझे. मैं महादिन से बहुत सीखता हूँ, हो सकता है महादिन भी मेरे से कभी कभार कुछ सीखता होगा. ख्याली से मैं सीखता हूँ, ख्याली भी हो सकता है मेरे से कुछ ना कुछ सीखता होगा. हम सारे ही एक दूसरे से कुछ ना कुछ सीखते हैं. मैं आपसे भी सीखने को तैयार हूँ और आई एम प्रीटी श्योर कि आप मुझे कोई ना कोई पॉइंट बताएंगे जो मैं कहूँगा हाँ यार, फ्लाईव्हील ने कहीं कुछ अच्छी चीज़ की. ये इसी तरीके से ये जो डिबेट्स हैं, ये भी इम्पोर्टेंट है। इसमें भी कहीं ना कहीं हो सकता है आपको नहीं लग रहा हो कि उसमें से कोई कुछ मानेगा, पर कई लोग ऐसे होंगे जो फेंस पे होंगे या जिनके दिमाग में कुछ ना कुछ इश्कालात होंगे, ठीक है, कहीं ना कोई सवाल होंगे, वो उनके सवाल या तो एक साइड वो टिप हो जाएंगे, उनको किसी एक की आर्ग्यूमेंट बेहतर लगी, किसी दूसरे की आर्ग्यूमेंट उनको बेहतर लगी, तो वो कहीं ना कहीं क्लियर होते रहेंगी वो। और कुछ अगर क्लियर नहीं भी होगा तो उनके पास एक फूड फॉर थॉट हो जाएगा बेसिकली, आप समझ रहे हो? कहीं ना कहीं दिल स्टार्ट थिंकिंग, राइट, दिल स्टार्ट रीडिंग, दिल सो तो आप ये डिबेट्स को ये मत सोचिए कि इसमें हमें आपको कोई कंक्लूजन पे पहुंचना है, वो जरूरी नहीं है, ठीक है।
नहीं,
जरूरी
जब तक
ये
मुझे
है कि आप
हाँ,
सोचना शुरू कर दें, ठीक है, या आपको कोई पॉइंट्स अच्छा लगे तो बोले हाँ यार ये इस बंदे ने अच्छा पॉइंट लिखा बताया है, या इसने ये रेफरेंसेस दिए हैं, मैं ये रेफरेंसेस जाके चेक करूंगा कि ये सही बोल रहा है यानी, या इसकी आर्गुमेंट को मैं कैसे, अगर ये मेरे को अच्छी नहीं लग रही तो मैं इसकी आर्गुमेंट्स को कैसे डिबंक कर सकता हूँ, ये भी एक अच्छा ओपिनियन है। समझ रहे हो आप? कहीं ना कुछ ना कुछ सीखोगे, कुछ ना कुछ कोई ना कोई माइंड बदलेगा, ये होता ही रहेगा। ये आज से 1000 साल तक से पहले से भी होता आ रहा है, और ये आज से 1000 साल लाखों साल तक होता भी रहेगा, अगर इंसानियत जिंदा रही तब तक। तो
हाँ, तो
anybody wants to
वो
add? Mahadin, so the point I
I,
made
I understood that. I understood that. I understood everything you said actually.
okay.
So yeah.
So you want to add, Khayali or Mahadin, you want to add
No,
something?
I think you said it all there. What does Flywheel think based on what you said? Unless Kylie wants to say something.
No, let's listen to Flywheel's
Yeah.
point of view. I mean,
Yeah.
what maybe he wants to
फ्लाईविल आपका
explain
क्या
his
पॉइंट ऑफ
position a
व्यू
bit
है?
more.
आप बताइए कुछ, अगर कुछ आपको मैंने कुछ गलत कहा या कुछ ऐसा, तो आप प्लीज पॉइंट आउट करें, जो भी अगर आपको लगता है कि कुछ मैंने गलत कहा हो, या आप अग्री भी नहीं करते हैं, आप बता दीजिए क्यों अग्री नहीं करते हैं। कोई बुराई नहीं है, डिसएग्रीमेंट में कभी भी कोई बुराई नहीं है। आप कहीं ना कहीं तो कुछ सीखेंगे, या मैं बोलूँगा हाँ आपका ये डिसएग्रीमेंट शायद इससे मैं अग्री नहीं करता हूँ कि इस रीज़न पे आप डिसएग्री हो रहे हैं, राइट?
हाँ, नहीं, मैं जो इस बहुत टॉपिक पे बोल रहा था कि ये लोग इसमें मतलब कुछ रिजल्ट नहीं आने वाला है, वो इसलिए बोल रहा था क्योंकि लोग का पहले बायसनेस रहता है, और जो दूसरा बात है, अब लोगों को कुछ मतलब कि जिसकी लाइफ नॉर्मल चलती है वो चेंज नहीं होती है, जिसकी लाइफ में कोई सडन चेंज आता है वो ऑटोमेटिक वो मतलब उसके वो जा करके चेंज होता है, मतलब कुछ कंक्लूसिव उसका लाइफ में होता है तब। ऐसे नॉर्मल पीपल जो है वो मुझे नहीं लगता उससे कोई फर्क पड़ने वाला है।
नहीं ऐसा नहीं है।
तो
ख्याली, यू
जैसे कि
वांट टू
अब
ऐड समथिंग? ख्याली,
हाँ
यू
लेट
वांट टू से समथिंग?
हाँ जी
हाँ एक
फ्लाईव्हील आप पूरी
मिनट,
कर लें।
लेट हिम फिनिश, लेट फ्लाईविल
जी
हाँ,
फिनिश।
मतलब मैं जो रहा हूँ, अगर कोई रिलीजियस बंदा है, अगर वो उसको बहुत ज्यादा उसको लगता है कि उसके रिलीजन की वजह से उसको नुकसान हो रहा है, तब जाकर के वो दूसरे साइड में जाएगा। या फिर कोई एथियस्ट बंदा है जो सोचता हो कि मुझे एम्प्टीनेस है या फिर कुछ और, तो वो अगर वो रिलीजन की तरफ वो अगर अट्रैक्ट होता है, उसे कुछ जिसको गोल मिलता है तो वो उस तरफ जाएगा ऐसे। मतलब और नॉर्मल पीपल तो जो मुझे लगता है 95% जो जिस रिलीजन में पैदा होते हैं उसी में मर जाते हैं, और बाकी जो लगते हैं जो बीच में जो सेकुलर ह्यूमनिज्म होते हैं, तो वो भी सोसाइटी पे डिपेंड करता है। जिस तरह से उनकी सोसाइटी उस तरह से है तो सोसाइटी में उस थॉट्स को परसीव करेंगे। अगर वो रिलीजियस सोसाइटी में है तो मैक्सिमम उस सोसाइटी को लेके चलते हैं। बस यही था।
Khayali, you want to add something or shall I just give him an example? Flywheel, एक आपको बता दूं, ये स्टैटिस्टिक है ईरान का, है ना? अंग्रेजी समझेगी आपको या हिंदी में ही बात
हाँ
करूं आपसे?
हाँ, मैं समझ रहा, बोलिए।
हम्म?
हाँ,
तो
बोलिए बोलिए बोलिए।
ईरान का आपको स्टैटिस्टिक मालूम है? आपने ये सुना होगा ईरान में जो जितने वो एंटी हिजाब जो प्रोटेस्ट हो रहे हैं और ये सब जो लेटेस्ट जो रिसर्चेज आ रही हैं, और वो कितनी सही है कितनी गलत है ये मैं नहीं कह सकता, पर काफ़ी जो रिसर्चेज आ रही हैं उसमें ये कह रहे हैं कि ईरान की 60% पॉपुलेशन जो है वो रिलीजन से हट चुकी है। तो आप ये जब बोल रहे हो ना कि जितने जो पब्लिक पैदा होती है और चेंज नहीं होती है, तो ये सब सही नहीं है। मैं बता रहा हूँ उसका
नहीं, तो
रीज़न
उसमें मैंने
क्यों है।
एक कंडीशन ऐड किया था ना कि अगर कोई कंक्लूसिव उसके लाइफ में बहुत ज्यादा नेगेटिव इफेक्ट नहीं करता तभी वो साइड
नहीं
चेंज
उसकी
करता है।
ज़रूरत नहीं है, उसकी ज़रूरत नहीं है। हम लोग में से सारे, हम लोगों की लाइफ में आपको लगता है कि हम लोग हम बहुत परेशान थे अपनी ज़िंदगी
नहीं,
में, हम
जैसे
सारे, या हमारी ज़िंदगी में
ईरान
कुछ
का
हो नहीं
बात।
रहा था, हमने हमने अपने जो अपने आप को बिल्कुल वो कर दिया, क्योंकि हम किसी खुदा से गुस्सा हो गए और ऐसा हो गए और हम इसलिए निकल गए। मेरे ख्याल से हम में से किसी के साथ भी ऐसा नहीं हो। हमने हमने डिबेट सुनी, हमने रीजन किया, हमने बहुत सारी चीजें देखी, और हमें लगा कि
तो
नहीं, ये हमारी पोजीशन टेनेबल नहीं है, हम इसको डिफेंड नहीं कर सकते। धीरे धीरे हम उससे अब सारे उससे बाहर आ गए।
हाँ, तो कहीं ना कहीं वो बैगेज होगा ना रिलीजन का आपके पीछे, जब आप उस चीज को कैरी कर रहे होंगे, तो वो आपको
नहीं
मतलब उसको आपने उतार दिया। तो
हाँ,
वही मैं
लेकिन
जो बोल रहा
लेकिन
हूँ।
जो आपको पॉइंट,
हाँ,
जी जी सॉरी, आप बात पूरी कर लो।
हाँ, मैं जो ईरान में बोल रहा हूँ, वहाँ शायद 1979 से ना वो एक रिजिम है जो एक तरह का थॉट प्रोसेस लोगों पे डाला गया है। तो अब वो 40 साल 50 साल से 2-3 जनरेशन निकल गई है, तो वो निगेटिवली उनको हर्ट कर रहा है, तो अब वो इसलिए वो चेंज हो रहे हैं। अगर वो अगर वो रिजिम नहीं आती, तो वो आज भी पाकिस्तान की तरह जैसे रहते, या बांग्लादेश इंडिया के जैसे रहते, उस तरह से वो नॉर्मल उनका चलता।
हाँ, मैं आई थिंक आप जो बात कर रहे हो वो एक हद तक दुरुस्त ये है कि जो लार्ज पार्ट ऑफ ज्यादातर जो इंसान है उनका ना वो रिलीजन चेंज करते हैं। अच्छा, जो चेंज करते हैं उनका भी शायद हम कह सकते हो कि उनमें से अक्सरियत को शायद कोई ना कोई, अगर मैं मेजर इम्पैक्ट कोई या मेजर सडन जैसे कहते हैं ना, कोई इवेंट ना भी हुआ हो, लेकिन ट्रिगर्स मौजूद होते हैं। और उसके अलावा एक हिस्सा जो कि अब जो लोग चेंज होते हैं उनमें से मेजॉरिटी नहीं तो एक अच्छा चंक ऐसा भी लोगों का होता है, अच्छी परसेंटेज, अगर 10% भी कह लें आप, जो कि इंटेलेक्चुअल रीजंस की वजह से चेंज होते हैं। क्योंकि फिर ये जो चेंज आपके जो पूरी जिंदगी का जो आपका रिलीजन खास तौर पे एक ऐसी चीज होती है जिससे आप बहुत ज्यादा अटैच होते हैं, बचपन से आपके वालिदैन की वजह से, आपकी इन्वायरमेंट की वजह से आप बहुत ज्यादा अटैच होते हैं। तो उससे डिटैच होना ना एक एक बड़ा टास्क होता है। तो उसके लिए कोई ना कोई आपके पास रीजन तो होता है। तो आई थिंक उसमें एक जो लोग रिलीजन को छोड़ते हैं या चेंज करते हैं, उनमें एक आई मतलब मैं एक बिल्कुल बॉल पार्क फिगर दे रहा हूँ, आई डोंट हैव एनी स्टैटिस्टिक्स राइट नाउ इन माय माइंड, लेकिन लेट्स से कि उसमें से चेंज होने वाले में से 10% आई थिंक इंटेलेक्चुअली होते होंगे, प्योरली इंटेलेक्चुअली। बाकी को कोई ना कोई ट्रिगर जरूर होता होगा, बट उस ट्रिगर की बेसिस पर फिर देन वो कुछ लोग इंटेलेक्चुअली इंडेवर करते हैं, कुछ लोग बिल्कुल प्योरली इमोशनल रीजंस की वजह से भी चेंज होते हैं। तो इस आपकी बात एक हद तक दुरुस्त है कि मेजोरिटी चेंज नहीं होती, माइनॉरिटी बिल्कुल चेंज होती है। और उन माइनॉरिटी में से काफ़ी सारे लोग ट्रिगर्स की वजह से या मेजर लाइफ इवेंट्स की वजह से भी होते हैं, और एक अच्छा हिस्सा उनमें से जो कि मेजॉरिटी नहीं होता लेकिन वो इंटेलेक्चुअल रीजंस की वजह से चेंज होता है।
Khali, just taking 1 minute to highlight this comment. Cosmic Inquirer, thank you very much. What a wonderful collection of hosts. Never stop, guys. Sure, Cosmic, thank you very much. We appreciate it. The plan is, at least as of now, is not to stop. Keep doing streams, good streams, bring really good, honest content, and intellectually stimulating content. So, and I'm thankful to Mahaden and Khali for being wonderful, co-hosts on this stream. So yes, definitely we'll keep bringing good content. Few more comments from Cosmic Inquirer. My life was pretty awesome before I became an atheist. I just stumbled onto Christopher Hitchens' video thanks to YouTube algorithm, and then stumbled onto a whole host of debates. I think, Cosmic, I think most of us had a similar journey, if not the same. I think initially, probably I too stumbled on some of these videos. Probably, I think I became an atheist much farther back. But yes, I think I'm pretty sure all of us have seen Christopher Hitchens, and then Sam Harris, Dan Dennett, and all these, four horsemen of the new atheism, basically Richard Dawkins included. One last
Sorry, and
comment from Kelly. Just 1 minute.
yeah, sure,
Last
sure.
comment. Sometimes the theist won, sometimes the atheist won. But the more I watched, this is a continuation of the last comment, I think. But the more I watched, the more I was convinced that the atheism was the stronger position. My life was very good prior to and after becoming an atheist, basically. Sorry, Kelly, go ahead, please.
No, I think, and I also agree. I mean, even in my case, religion didn't impact me negatively per se. I do understand there were some sort of restrictions, and honestly, I do have to live by those restrictions even right now. But I personally also didn't have any sort of a sudden event which changed my thinking. It was a very gradual process. Over time, I realized that the case for theism is very weak, and the
Mm.
case for at least agnosticism is quite strong. So over time, I realized, and over time, it was, I it it was clear. It became clear to me that this is a stronger position to hold. So I would say that there was no my life wasn't impacted negatively by religion per se. So my reasons were purely intellectual as well.
Yeah, similar. That's a similar storyline for me, to be honest. And I think the way you come out of religion could very much well cement and indicate how you hold on to it. A lot of people, for example, might not enjoy the religious activities and rites and rituals, rites of passage, rituals and things, and might have a moral issue with the religion itself. But they might not go deeply into the intellectual case for religion, like intellectual philosophy. When that happens, what happens is that they kind of move out of religion for emotional reasons, dissatisfaction with the way it's carried out, and so on, but not real intellectual reasons. And when I say intellectual, I mean even the interrogating the hadith, like if it's Islam, the hadiths, the Quran, to actually see whether or not the apparent sort of disconnection between your personal sense of morality maybe and the conflict that you're having trying to reconcile it with the Islamic sense of morality, whether that's real, because it might not be the case that that's the case. It could be that there's theological justifications for, let's say, something that you perceive to be barbaric. And I've met a lot of people who have left because when they grew up, they just thought Islam doesn't fit modern life, and they were the ones who, when they encountered good critical defenses by really smart philosophers, theologians, scholars, they didn't know what to do. So they ended up kind of having emotional reasons for leaving. And I think realistically speaking, you can't just leave in one go. Well, you can. I mean, your belief might drop out, but then it's like a decade-long journey of just understanding everything else, including atheistic case, theistic case, Islamic case, etc. It takes time to build and have a coherent understanding. And I'm much more interested in people who have been really studying it for a longer period. So my advice to the commenter would be continue studying, because you have to get into religious philosophy, religious theology, read the books, and so on.
In fact, I mean, so much so that a colleague of mine who I used to have a lot of discussions with, I never told him my true position, but over time he realized my position. He understood that I am a sort of an agnostic. So and once he realized, I became a bit more open with him, and I sort of started bringing up a bit more direct cases against Islam and other such the atheistic arguments as well. And he was quite quick to change, and I mean, I think he changed probably within a month or two. And
Mm.
I told him, well, this is a bit too quick.
So
Exactly.
Just
he
give it a
thought
bit
his
more
position.
time. You don't
So
have
he
to
thought his
change so
position was
quickly.
untenable. Basically, he thought
Yeah,
his
yeah,
position.
exactly. So I told him, well, your decision is a bit too quick. I think you should think about it. Give it a bit more time.
Yeah.
Just study about your religion, study
Mm.
the theistic case as well, study both things in detail. It's you're making this decision a bit too quickly. But he has continued to study, but he is becoming stronger and stronger, and a stronger and stronger agnostic day by day. But he didn't go
Mm.
back on that. But I mean,
Okay.
I took a lot of time though. He actually, I was quite surprised. I think he changed over, I think probably in a month or two.
Right.
Can
So
you add?
I think I'll Flywheel bhai, you want to add
Yeah.
something? आपको कुछ बोलना है?
Oh, no, all you are a former Muslim?
Yeah.
Oh, that's.
Yep.
I think you are. I think you are the Christians or maybe Hindus. That's
See,
why I.
what matters is where we are right now, right? and what we can critique basically is the question, right?
Yeah,
Can we
exactly.
critique something or not? Do you have to
Yes.
be a certain, see where you find and what you can critique basically is the point. It doesn't matter, right?
No, no,
Or does
I
it
will ask
matter?
you just foreign Muslims are very negligible. I think that's why I am asking.
Okay,
Normally
okay.
we can't see. That's why I say in my family there are many like atheist type people, but they are okay. So that's why I asking it
You,
seriously.
Flywheel, you are from a Hindu family?
Yes, my family is that type.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think
You
it's quite
know,
understandable why there are not a lot of ex-Muslims or a visible number of ex-Muslims out there. There are some good reasons for that.
Right,
Yes,
right.
there are apostasy and blasphemy law for there.
You know
Yeah, I
what?
mean,
What I have realized.
yeah.
What I have realized is, sorry, Callie, just 1 second. I'm gonna steal your time. What I have realized is, in India, even if and within the Hindu community, even if people are not going to temple and they are not praying and all those things, they are still calling themselves religious. Basically, they still call themselves religious. So you'll find the lowest number of atheists or agnostics within the Hindu community, right? But that's not the, and that's why I think Abrahamic religions are different in that sense. Once you go to a concept of a single god, right, monotheism, the only way out, or the probably the most logical way out. I'm not saying the only way out is agnosticism or atheism, but I think that's the most logical way. Do you think that's true, or that's something I'm just making up?
I think they also accept Gnostic. That's why they don't discard them from their family. That's why it is very rarely they openly call anyone atheist or agnostic. They say, "I am just not Hindu or maybe non-religious type."
So yeah, I mean there is a concept of atheism in Hinduism, but that's yeah, I
Yeah,
mean
that's not
that's
Western type of atheism. That is different little bit.
yeah. I mean I know what they are called. They are called Lokayatas basically, or what is the other name? I think
Uh, no,
Charvaks. I think
I think
Charvak
that
philosophy is the
yes.
one, right?
Uh,
Right,
uh,
right,
I
right.
think they said God, God accept you as an atheist also. That's why they say. So that's why there is no discarding from their families or no get backlash from their side.
All right, all right. All right, let's see. Let's see if you have any other point, maybe towards this debate review or any other point that we made earlier. Maybe let's have a go at it. I wanted to talk about something, but I think in between I lost track of it.
No, no,
Cali.
you continue yourself. I think I'm.
anyway, I'm going to probably depart now. So
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
if you guys want to, yeah,
I
if
was
you guys
thinking
want
of
to
closing
continue,
down the stream as well.
oh yeah, if you guys want to continue, you're obviously welcome to. I mean, yeah, but otherwise, I'll talk to you guys maybe in the next stream, perhaps. We have to finish that review. I think we are pacing ourselves, but we should try and finish it off. I think we get a lot of distractions, and it's good to have these distractions, but at the same time, we don't get the fundamental thing accomplished, right?
Right. I
So,
think we need to get down to it and finish it basically.
yeah, and it'll be good to have Kaylee on for some of the more deeper scriptural maybe discussions if we ever get to it.
Sure thing. We'll do that.
Yeah, Kaylee, if you're
Sure, absolutely. I'd love
yeah.
to be a part of such streams.
All right, great, brilliant. Anyway, Flywheel, Kylie Pulafilo, see you later for now.
All right, Madan. Yes.
Yeah.
Talk to you
Yeah.
later.
Okay,
And
Madan.
Callie, do you wanna? All right, Madan. Callie, you wanna carry on for a few more minutes, or you
Sure. I
wanna?
mean, if you're up for that, I'm fine. We
Okay,
can
let's
continue.
carry on for another 10-15 minutes. Let's see
Sure.
what Flywheel has to say. Flywheel, कुछ है आपके पास बोलने के लिए?
हाँ वो मेरे पास तो है लेकिन मेरा वो दूसरा डायरेक्शन में है, इस डायरेक्शन पे नहीं जाता है मतलब इसीलिए मैं बोल रहा
अच्छा,
था, मैं एग्जिस्टेंस ऑफ ह्यूमन पे बात करता
आपने जो वो पॉइंट कहा था ना कि लोग जो है वो बहुत रेयरली चेंज करते हैं, हो सकता है वो केस हो सकता है, पर धीरे धीरे पब्लिक ओपन हो रही है इस मामले में, राइट। बहुत जगह आप देखोगे, और ये फिनोमेना ग्लोबल फिनोमेना है। ये सिर्फ ऐसा नहीं है कि इंडिया में ही हो रहा है, या इंडिया में तो इनफैक्ट बहुत कम हो रहा है एक्चुअली। अगर आप ये फिनोमेना देखोगे तो ये सऊदी अरेबिया में इनफैक्ट बहुत तेज़ी से बढ़ा है कंपैरेटिवली, मैं बता रहा हूँ। मैं ये नहीं कह रहा हूँ कि अपने यहाँ से इंडिया में इनफैक्ट देखोगे तो आप नंबर ऑफ एथियस्ट जो है वो कम दिखाता है कई रिसर्चेस में, राइट। बट अगर आप बाहर के देखोगे, मिडल ईस्टर्न कंट्रीज में कुछ एक में देखोगे, यूएई में कहते हैं कि काफ़ी नंबर्स आए हैं, पर वो यूएई के मैंने कोई स्टैटिस्टिक्स नहीं देखे हैं। ख्याली आपने देखे हैं क्या कोई ख्याली?
यूएई में यार, नो, यूएई के स्टैटिस्टिक्स आई डोंट थिंक कि कोई भी रिलायबल ऐसे आए हैं। मेरे इल्म में नहीं है। देयर माइट बी, मेरे इल्म में नहीं
UAE
है।
means
आई थिंक
original
वहां पर जरा
Arabs
प्रॉब्लम भी ज्यादा
or
है ना।
combined with extracts.
हम्म
Because there are only 50% of local population, na? So they are all about there, or you cared about total population.
आप यूएई बोल रहे हैं? यूएई में टोटल 30%? क्या बोल रहे हैं? सॉरी, फिर से बोलिए।
There are only 50% of are Arabs in UAE. And then I think there's more than 80,
वो
85%
कह रहे हैं कि
are
बाकी फॉरेनर्स हैं,
expats.
हाँ
बाकी
हाँ हाँ,
फॉरेनर्स हैं, एक्सपेट्स।
हाँ, मतलब बहुत लो पॉपुलेशन जो हाँ, अमीराती जो पब्लिक है वो बहुत कम है। आई थिंक आप सही बोल रहे हो, मेरे ख्याल से 25-30% के आसपास ही है, बल्कि इनफैक्ट कम ही है, 20% के आसपास है। पर हाँ, मतलब ये आप नंबर दिखेंगे आपको सब जगह, और ये हो रहा है, धीरे धीरे होगा। देखो, इंटरनेट की एज है ये। इंटरनेट की वजह से बहुत सारी चीज़ें जो है बहुत तेज़ी से फैल रही हैं। जो 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 नॉलेज बेस जो अब पब्लिक को मिल रहा है इंटरनेट के थ्रू, वो पहले नहीं मिलता था, राइट। आज की डेट में कोई भी जाके कोई भी स्क्रिप्चर उठा के, बाइबल के 66 जितनी भी बुक्स हैं वो कोई भी उठा के पढ़ सकता है। वेदों के ट्रांसलेशन सारे पढ़ सकता है। क्या क्या गंदगियाँ उनमें मिलेगी, सॉरी, मेरे को वो शब्द नहीं यूज़ करना चाहिए, वो मेरे को वर्ड्स इस्तेमाल नहीं करना चाहिए, पर जो किसी भी रिलीजन में क्या क्या जो एटलीस्ट हमारी जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग है आज की, जो हमारा एक मॉरल ज़ाइटगाइस्ट है जिसको हम मान के चलते हैं, ठीक है। वो मॉरल ज़ाइटगाइस्ट जो है वो टाइम्स के हिसाब से चेंज होता रहता है, ऑफ कोर्स, उसमें कोई नई बात नहीं है। उस हमारी जो भी मॉरल अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, उस पे अगर हम वो पुराने स्क्रिप्चर्स को फिट करने की कोशिश करते हैं तो कहीं ना कहीं फिट नहीं बैठता। पर जो आदमी, फर्ज कर लो कोई बहुत ही रिलीजियस हिंदू है, राइट, उसको आप बोलोगे कि हाँ भाई ये जो सती है प्रथा, राइट, ये आपको कैसा लगता है, तो वो बोलेगा नहीं यार, किसी भी औरत को आपको किसी तरह से उसको मरने का वो नहीं, मरने नहीं देना चाहिए। पर जैसे ही आप उसको बोलोगे कि नहीं यार ये तो आपके स्क्रिप्चर में लिखा है, तो फिर वो शायद डिफेंसिव हो जाएगा, राइट। ये सभी जगह होता है, ये अक्रॉस ऑल द जो मजहब है या
या
मजाहिब जो है, ये
एक्सक्यूज
सभी
बनाते
में
हैं
है
लोग।
ये, है ना। तो सब कहीं ना कहीं एकदम डिफेंसिव पोजीशन में आ जाते हैं। पर थोड़ा सा अगर सोचें वो, और थोड़ा तसल्ली बख्श तरीके से अगर उस पर ध्यान दें, तो फिर वो सारी चीज़ें क्लियर हो जाती है कि नहीं यार, हाँ, कहीं ना कुछ गड़बड़ है। हो सकता है ये पॉसिबिलिटी है कि ये चीज़ें, ये बुक्स जो हैं उस वक्त के लोगों ने लिखी हों, उस वक्त की जो लोगों को अपनी सोसाइटी को कंट्रोल करने के लिए या एटलीस्ट डिसिप्लिन करने के लिए जो मॉरल कोड्स बनाए गए थे, वो जो है वो आगे के ज़माने में आ गए, और अब के ज़माने में वो फिट नहीं होते हैं, बेसिकली ये।
लोगों ने बाउंड्रीज बनाते हैं उस टाइम से, अभी भी लोग चाहते हैं वही बाउंड्री में रहे, तो वो वही बाउंड्री ओवरलैप कर जाती है, वही प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट हो रही है।
राइट, वो है, वो सारी चीज़ें हैं, और इसलिए मेरे ख्याल से हिंदुइज्म में तो ये बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है, राइट। कितनी पुरानी है किताबें? 3,500-4,000 साल पुरानी किताबें हैं।
बीसी तक जाती है शायद।
हाँ, वही, मतलब बीसी तक जाती हैं, राइट। वो
हाँ
कितनी,
वो
1800 बीसी, 2000 बीसी, 1200 बीसी, कुछ ऐसी होंगी, राइट। मतलब 3-3,500 तो साल तो अपन कम से कम मान ही सकते हैं कहीं ना कहीं, राइट।
यस, वो जब
तो अगर आप उन
इंडस्ट्रियल
किताबों को,
सिविलाइजेशन से आप देखोगे तो वहां से उनका ट्रेस आता है।
हाँ, अगर उन
जो ये
किताबों को लेकर कोई अभी चलेगा और बोलेगा नहीं यार ये किताबें तो बिल्कुल इन किताबों को तो बिल्कुल लफ्ज़ बाय लफ्ज़ मानना चाहिए, ऐसा है तो फिर कहीं ना कहीं गड़बड़ी होगी ना, क्योंकि भाई उन लोगों को तो आज की डेट के बारे में कुछ, इस टाइम की मोरालिटी के बारे में कोई आइडिया ही नहीं था, राइट। खैर आप तो नहीं मानते हो, मैं एक जनरल बात कर रहा हूँ। ख्याली भाई, यू वांट ऐड समथिंग?
नहीं, आप सही बात कर रहे हैं कि ये डिफेंसिव मोड में आना तो सबका ही, ये ह्यूमन नेचर है, जाहिर सी बात है। इंसान अपने जो नज़रियात होते हैं ना, उनके साथ अटैच हो जाता है। तो उन नज़रियात में जब उनको क्रिटिसाइज किया जाए, तो वो उसका एक नेचुरल इंस्टिंक्ट है कि वो उससे जो है ना डिसोसिएट करना उसके लिए बहुत मुश्किल प्रोसेस होता है। तो जाहिर सी बात है वो फिर डिफेंसिव मोड में चले जाते हैं।
एग्जैक्टली। और वही मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि उसको, वो ऐसी पोजीशन नहीं है कि जिसमें से आप उसको एटलीस्ट, इसीलिए ये कॉन्वर्सेशंस जो हम लोग कर रहे हैं वो कर रहे हैं फ्लाईव्हील, ताकि एटलीस्ट एक पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू चले जाए पब्लिक में, राइट। आई एम प्रीटी श्योर कि ये बहुत सारे लोग इस तरह की स्ट्रीम्स कर रहे हैं, ठीक है। पर हमारा जो हम जिस तरह से कर रहे हैं, एटलीस्ट मैं, महादीन और ख्याली, ख्याली भाई जब भी आते हैं हम लोग, हमारा पर्सपेक्टिव हम थोड़ा सा अलग तरीके से इसलिए कर रहे हैं तो कि ताकि हम फिलोसफी के को बेसिस पे रख के और हम आर्गुमेंट्स पेश कर सकें बेसिकली। और कहीं ना कहीं महादीन ने और मैंने दोनों ने आई थिंक 4-5 स्ट्रीम्स पहले ये बात की थी कि ऐसा आपको एक भी सिंगल फिलोसोफर बंदा नहीं मिलेगा जो अपनी फिलोसफी को 100% डिफेंड कर पाए या किसी 100% सही तरीके से उसको वो कर पाएगा कि उसमें कोई गलतियां ना निकाल पाए उस केस में, क्योंकि वो सब्जेक्ट ही ऐसे हैं। हमारा नॉलेज जो है बहुत लिमिटेड है, कहीं ना कहीं हम कंसिस्टेंसी के चक्कर में कहीं ना कुछ चीज़ें खो देंगे, ऐसा है बेसिकली। तो ये मैं अभी आई थिंक ख्याली आई थिंक यस्टरडे की, कल की बात है या कब की बात है, मैं अपने वाजिदी साहब की स्ट्रीम में गया था और आई डोंट नो मैंने आपने वो सुनी है या नहीं स्ट्रीम, पर अगर नहीं सुनी है तो वो सुना। मैं आई थिंक पहला ही कॉलर था उसमें। और मेरी उनसे एक किस चीज़ पे बात हुई थी मेरी उनसे, मेरी बात हुई थी हिस्टोरिकल इस पे कि आप किसी तरह से आप हिस्ट्री पे कैसे प्रूव कर सकते हो कि कोई चीज़ जो है हुई है। बेसिकली मेरा कंटेंशन ये था कि आप अगर देखें इस्लामिक हिस्ट्री, एक्चुअली जो बताया जाता है वो ये बताया जाता है कि इस्लाम वाज बॉर्न इन फुल लाइट ऑफ हिस्ट्री बेसिकली। मतलब वो सब कुछ लिखा हुआ है, बिल्कुल क्लियर कट हिस्ट्री है और सब कुछ है, राइट। और चूंकि नया मज़हब भी है तो हो सकता है कि वो हो, लेकिन हम अगर हिस्ट्री को देखें तो हमें इंडिपेंडेंट सोर्सेस से उसका जो हिस्टोरिकल कंटेक्स्ट या वो मिलना बहुत ही मुश्किल है, ऑलमोस्ट इम्पॉसिबल सा है। क्योंकि आप देखोगे तो जो पूरी मुकम्मल कुरान जो है वो आपको कब मिलती है? ख्याली आपको आइडिया है? मैं जैसे आपसे सवाल पूछ रहा हूँ, फ्लाईव्हील आपको आइडिया है?
मुकम्मल मुकम्मल सिंगल कुरान जो है,
हाँ,
वो तो थोड़ा सा लेटर हमारे पास उसके मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स हैं, बट पार्शल और मतलब कुछ टुकड़ों, कुछ फ्रेगमेंट्स वगैरह जो हैं, उनको कुल मिला के आई थिंक कुछ 80-90% बन जाता है फर्स्ट सेंचुरी के एंड तक, फर्स्ट सेंचुरी ऑफ इस्लाम के एंड तक बन जाता है।
अच्छा, हाँ, तो ये मैं आपको बता दूं कि जो पहली, जो एटलीस्ट जो मेरे नॉलेज में है, हो सकता है अगर कोई भाई सुन रहा हो और अगर मेरे से इख्तिलाफ रखता हो तो बता दे। फर्स्ट जो मुकम्मल कुरान जो मिलती है वो है कायरो में, आई थिंक अल अज़हर यूनिवर्सिटी में है वो। मैं और शायद जो आज की जो कुरान है करंट, उसका बेसिस भी वही रहा है। उसको कहते हैं, मानते हैं कि वो उस्मानी कुरान है, पर मैं 100% श्योर नहीं कि उसको मानते हैं। यानी वो है मेरे ख्याल से 9th सेंचुरी, मिड 9th सेंचुरी टू लेट 9th सेंचुरी के आसपास की है, करीब करीब। ख्याली आप कुछ बोलने वाले थे, अगर करेक्शन करना हो तो प्लीज बताओ आप।
पहले से आपकी क्या मुराद है? पहला कंप्लीट कुरान का मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट
मतलब
उसको
अर्लीस्ट जो कंप्लीट कुरान मिलती है, अर्लीस्ट कंप्लीट कुरान जो मिलती है आपको।
100% यानी कंप्लीट जो है
हाँ, मतलब जो जिसमें
आई
एक
थिंक
सौ 114 जिसमें सूरह हों, और है ना, वो
आई
उसकी बात
थिंक
है।
शायद आप इस बारे में सही कह रहे होगे कि एग्जैक्टली मैं मेरी ऑनेस्टली हिस्ट्री पे जो मेरी गिरफ्त है वो बहुत कमजोर है। मैं
हाँ, हाँ, हाँ।
हिस्ट्री का इतना बड़ा वो नहीं हूँ, मैं सिर्फ प्योरली थियोलॉजिकल साइड को थोड़ा सा मेरा शौक ज्यादा रहा है। हिस्ट्री पे मैं फॉर सम रीजन मुझे ज्यादा शौक नहीं है, तो मैं बिल्कुल इस
हम्म,
तरह के हिस्टोरिकल फैक्ट्स को थोड़ा 100% वेरीफाई तो नहीं कर सकूंगा, लेकिन आई थिंक शायद आप ठीक कह रहे हो कि अगर बिल्कुल एक कंप्लीट हम मुसहफ की बात करें तो शायद
हम्म।
वो कायरो वाला ही है। आई थिंक एक तोप कॉपी कहलाता है,
वो
और
तोप
और एक
कापी
कायरो
और
और
समरकंद
एक कायरो।
समरकंद ये सारे जो हैं,
हाँ
ये
समर
हैं तो मिड 8th सेंचुरी के।
जी
नहीं,
जी
मिड 8 नहीं है, ये भी हैं करीब मेरे ख्याल से लेट 8th 9th सेंचुरी के आसपास के हैं ये।
जी 8 9
पर
सेंचुरी के हैं ये।
हाँ, पर ये मुकम्मल नहीं है एक्चुअली।
हम्म। तो और
तो
जो
इनके साथ
कंप्लीट
वो
है
परेशानी।
वो और लेटर है मेरे ख्याल में,
हाँ,
जो
हाँ,
आपने बताया
कंप्लीट वाली
कंप्लीट
जो,
वाला।
हाँ, कंप्लीट अल
हाँ
अज़हर वाली हो सकता है और लेट हो, शायद 10th
जी
सेंचुरी की हो, मे बी।
जी वो थोड़ा और
अच्छा,
लेटर
या
वो
हो सकता है।
लिखी हुई कौन सी मटेरियल पे, पेपर पे है, पेन पे लिखी, पेपर से लिखी हुई है क्या?
हाँ
वो
जी,
जो लिखी
कागज
हुई
जो
है,
जमाने में होता था उस जमाने
वो
का कागज पे
पार्चमेंट्स
लिखा।
पे लिखी हुई है एक्चुअली, है ना, वो पार्चमेंट्स बनते थे अपने एनिमल स्किन पे बेसिकली।
नहीं
अच्छा,
लेकिन हाँ शायद वो एनिमल स्किन पर ही हो, शायद उसी का
हाँ,
बना हो, आई डोंट नो उसका मटेरियल क्या था, बट वो
तो वो
है
अभी तक
पूरा
वो
बुक की फॉर्म में
डिके नहीं हुआ
कन्वर्ट।
है क्या?
सॉरी सॉरी, क्या बोल रहे हैं फ्लाईविल
और
आप?
अभी तक वो, और अगर वो एनिमल स्किन से होगा तो अब तक तो उसको डिके हो जाना चाहिए ना?
नहीं
नहीं,
वो
एनिमल
एनिमल
स्किन
स्किन
डिके
जैसे
नहीं होता
लेदर
है
होता है
उसको,
ना,
वो लेदर जो
लेदर
है
होता
ना।
है जैसे वो खराब नहीं होता ना, उस तरह के मटेरियल को वो, मैं तो वैसे एग्जांपल के तौर पे कह रहा हूँ, तो इस तरह के वो स्किन को इस तरह ट्रीट करते हैं कि वो खराब फिर नहीं होता बहुत सालों
हाँ,
तक,
नहीं, वो एनिमल स्किन को बिल्कुल
सेंचुरीज
प्रॉपरली
तक।
ट्रीट करते हैं, और उसके बाद बिल्कुल, ख्याली भाई बिल्कुल सही बोल रहे हो कि वो ट्रीट करके, और फिर वो बिल्कुल जो फाइन लेदर रहती है। आपने आपने कभी वो देखा होगा जो अपने यहाँ जो ड्रम्स वगैरह बजाते हैं, उस पे जो
हाँ,
थिन स्किन होती है, वो देखी है आपने? वो ट्रीटेड
ढोलक तब।
स्किन स्किन होती है वो, राइट, है ना? तो वो जो उस तरह की स्किन होती है, वो बहुत लंबी चलती है एक्चुअली, राइट। हाँ, मतलब लेकिन उसको आपको प्रिजर्व भी करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि अगर आप उसको मॉइस्चर में छोड़ दोगे या किसी इसमें छोड़ दोगे, तो ऑफ कोर्स वो डीके होगी धीरे धीरे। पर अगर आप उसको थोड़ा संभाल के रखोगे, मॉइस्चर वगैरह से दूर रखोगे, तो फिर वो लंबी चलेगी। तो ये है इस तरह की। पर हाँ, मैं ख्याली आपको यही बता रहा था कि मैं उस स्ट्रीम पे गया और मैंने फिर सवालात किए उन्होंने मेरे को हवाले दिए कि बर्मिंघम की जो मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट है, राइट, बर्मिंघम मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट जो अर्ली है, उससे आपको मालूम चल जाता है कि ये मेरा मेरा केस एक्चुअली ये था कि आप कोई शख्स जो है 7वीं सेंचुरी में एग्जिस्ट भी करता था, उसके आपके पास इंडिपेंडेंट क्या सबूत हैं बेसिकली, राइट। और इंडिपेंडेंटली अगर आप देखोगे तो हिस्टोरिकली आपको इंडिपेंडेंट सबूत उसके नहीं मिलते हैं। दो दो शख्स मेरे को नाम याद आते हैं जिन्होंने इस तरह का कुछ लिखा है, एक था सोफ्रोनियस और एक था सेबियोस बेसिकली। ये दो के मेरे को नाम ध्यान है, इन्होंने कुछ लिखा है हल्का। सोफ्रोनियस ने एक्चुअली कुछ भी नहीं लिखा। सोफ्रोनियस लिखता है कि अरब की आर्मीज आई, बैटल ऑफ यारमुक हुई। सोफ्रोनियस, मैं बता दूं कौन था सोफ्रोनियस, उस टाइम जेरूसलम का आर्क बिशप या पैट्रियार्क था। और उसने कुछ भी नहीं लिखा कि अरब आर्मी क्या है, या इनका कोई नया रिलीजन है या कुछ है, या ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं लिखा उसने। बस इतना कहा कि अरब की आर्मी आई, यारमुक में बैटल हुई, और यारमुक की बैटल अरब जीत गए, और उसके बाद धीरे धीरे वो उन्होंने जेरूसलम पे कब्जा कर लिया। हमने कुछ भी नहीं किया, बेसिकली हमने सरेंडर कर लिया सीधे सीधे। बट ये कुछ नहीं लिखा कौन था, कुरान थी, कोई नया मज़हब था, या उसमें उनके नाम कुछ अलग थे, ऐसा कुछ कुछ भी नहीं लिखा उसका। तो उन्होंने ये आर्गुमेंट्स पेश किए। फिर आपको आइडिया है कि आपने आमिर भाई को सुना होगा। तो वो आमिर भाई जो हैं वो थोड़े उनके मतलब एटलीस्ट मेरा जो
वो तो
गुफ्तगू करने का
एग्रेसिव आते हैं
तरीका
वो
है।
तो,
हाँ, सॉरी।
मैंने कहा वो थोड़ा एग्रेसिव आते हैं।
हाँ, वो एग्रेसिव हो जाते हैं, उनका गुफ्तगू करने का तरीका जो है मेरे तरीके से बिल्कुल अलग है। तो फिर वो फिर बात करने का मेरे को बहुत ज़्यादा मौका नहीं मिला, तो मैं कुछ पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू नहीं दिया। पर उन्होंने एक आर्गुमेंट रखी जो मेरे को बड़ी अजीब सी लगी। मैंने कहा कि यार, आमिर भाई जैसा बंदा जो है वो इस तरह के आर्गुमेंट रखना है। मैंने उनको कहा कार्बन डेटिंग की बात है, कार्बन डेटिंग से ये प्रूव हुआ है कि ये 570 का से लेके बर्मिंघम कुरान जो है 570 से लेके 645 तक की हो सकती है, उस बीच की हो सकती है, राइट। तो हो सकता है कि इसमें से कुछ पार्ट जो है वो इवन 610 से 632 के पहले का भी हो बेसिकली, राइट, जिस वक्त कुरान जो है नाजिल हो रहा था, राइट, उसके पहले का भी हो सकता है। तो इसका मतलब ये है कि कोई प्रोटो कुरान ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्टेंस में था, और इसका मतलब ये थियरी जो है वो प्रूव होती है कि कहीं ना कहीं कुछ पार्ट जो है जो इस्लाम जो है उसका जो प्रीकर्सर जो है वो कोई सम डिफॉर्म्ड वर्जन ऑफ क्रिश्चियनिटी रहा होगा, जिसको कहते हैं कोई ऑर्थोडॉक्स क्रिश्चियनिटी का पार्ट रहा होगा बेसिकली, राइट। पर वो उन्होंने कहा कि यार आप कार्बन डेटिंग को कैसे आप वो कर सकते हो, राइट। कार्बन डेटिंग से आप किसी चीज़ की डेट को सही से एस्टिमेट कैसे कर सकते हो, क्योंकि कार्बन डेटिंग तो सिर्फ 6000 साल तक का काम करता है, बाकी 50-50 लाख साल पहले का आप कैसे करोगे। मैंने कहा यार ये आर्गुमेंट मेरे समझ में नहीं आई बिल्कुल, क्योंकि यार रेडियोमेट्रिक डेटिंग के बारे में जिस किसी ने भी पढ़ा है उसको इतना तो आइडिया होगा।
जी नहीं, क्योंकि डिफरेंट
फॉसिल्स के भी डेटिंग हो
डिफरेंट
जाते हैं अब तो।
डिफरेंट
तो
किस्म
डायनामिक
की रेडियोमेट्रिक डेटिंग होती है, और वो डिफरेंट जो एलिमेंट्स होते हैं ना, उनकी बेसिस पर डिफरेंट एराज की एजिंग की जाती है। अब आई डोंट नो कि शॉर्ट टर्म एजिंग जो है, मेरे ख्याल है हंड्रेड्स ऑफ ईयर्स की जो एजिंग होती है वो कार्बन से होती है शायद। अब आई एम नॉट श्योर, मैं उसमें इतना माहिर
वो
नहीं हूँ,
6000
बट
रफली 6050-200 ईयर्स का, देखो हाफ
हाँ,
लाइफ के ऊपर डिपेंड
हाफ
करता है
लाइफ
वो,
के ऊपर होता है।
है ना। वो
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल,
कोई भी एलिमेंट है जो
रेडियो
डीके
एक्टिव
करता
एलिमेंट्स
है,
पर
रेडियो
डिपेंड
एक्टिव
करता है।
एलिमेंट जो है वो डीके करता है, जैसे कार्बन 14 जो है वो डीके होता है, राइट। फिर या फिर प्लूटोनियम से भी करते हैं, बहुत सारे हैं, है ना। अपना ये है के किसका सिंबल है, के
पोटेशियम।
पोटेशियम, राइट, पोटेशियम का होता है, राइट। तो ये सारे जो हैं ये डीके करते हैं बेसिकली, और जो भी और दूसरे रेडियो एक्टिव एलिमेंट्स हैं वो भी डीके करते हैं बेसिकली, राइट। तो ये मेरे बिल्कुल पल्ले नहीं पड़ा कि वो कैसे बोल गए हैं, क्योंकि इसमें से जैसे पोटेशियम हो गया, पोटेशियम ऑलमोस्ट 50 मिलियन ईयर्स के आसपास तक का उसका वो है, डीके करता है, हाफ लाइफ है उसकी, राइट। तो वो काफ़ी लंबे टाइम का जो है वो कार्बन डेटिंग कर सकते हैं, पर जिसका जितना लंबा डीके टाइम है उसका एरर भी उतना ही ज़्यादा रहता है बेसिकली इसमें। पर एनीवे मैं शायद थोड़ा बाहर के इसमें
बिल्कुल
चला गया।
बिल्कुल, वो
खैर
ऐसे होता है।
कुछ
मैं देखें, पॉइंट आपका जो था ना, वो सवाल बिल्कुल वैलिड है, और आई थिंक उस सवाल को शायद हम इस तरह भी फ्रेज कर सकते हैं कि ये लोग अक्सर
खैली आप म्यूट हो गए मेरे ख्याल से, गलती से आपका म्यूट दब गया क्या, या आपने कोई रीजन की वजह
आवाज
से
आ
आप।
रही है, अब
हाँ
ठीक है?
हाँ
हाँ, सॉरी। अच्छा, तो मैं ये कह रहा था कि आई थिंक इस सवाल को इस तरह भी हमारा कंसर्न एटलीस्ट इनकंसिस्टेंसी जो है ना इनकी अप्रोच की, उसको वाज़े किया जा सकता है, इस्लामिक जो थियोलॉजी है उसकी अप्रोच को, कि ये बहुत सारी जो है, अगर अपने केस को सॉलिडिफाई करने की कोशिश भी करते हैं ना बहुत सारे एंगल से, तो प्रॉब्लम ये इनको आती है कि इनको अपनी हिस्ट्री यूज़ करनी पड़ती है, ठीक है? अच्छा, जब हम यानी हिस्ट्री से मेरी क्या मुराद है कि अदर देन हदीथ जो हिस्ट्री लिखी हुई है, हिस्ट्री की किताबें, उसको इनको उस पे रिलाय करना पड़ता है, एटलीस्ट पॉजिटिव केसेस के लिए, यानी जहाँ-जहाँ पॉजिटिव स्टोरीज़ हैं, पॉजिटिव वाक़यात हैं, उनको ये लोग हिस्ट्री से उठाते हैं, जहाँ कहीं इनको मिल जाए, और उसको एज़ अपने केस को सॉलिडिफाई करने के लिए हज़रत मोहम्मद के कैरेक्टर को पॉजिटिव दिखाने के लिए यूज़ भी करते हैं। लेकिन अगर हमें उसी हिस्ट्री किताब में, क्योंकि आप हिस्ट्री की किताबें पढ़ेंगे तो उसमें बहुत से काबिल एतराज़ात वाक़यात भी आपको मिल जाएँगे आराम से। जैसे ही हम उसी हिस्ट्री की किताबों को या उसी हिस्टोरिकल जो हमारा मटीरियल है उसमें से काबिल एतराज़ात वाक़यात को हाइलाइट करेंगे, तो उनका जवाब फ़ौरन ये आएगा कि ये तो हिस्ट्री में है, इसको आप कोई सही हदीस से लेके आएँ। तो ये जो इनकंसिस्टेंट अप्रोच है, इसका मतलब है कि इनकी जो अपनी हिस्ट्री लिखी हुई है, इस पर ये खुद भी रिलाय नहीं कर सकते। आप ये देखें कि इनफैक्ट अगर आप ज़रा इस मैटर के बारे में थोड़ा-सा यू नो ऑनेस्ट स्कॉलर्स को सुनेंगे ना मुस्लिम, कि जी असल में इन लोगों ने क्या किया हुआ है कि इन्होंने इसको ये लोग कहते हैं दौर जाहिलियत की शायरी भी इन्होंने, उसके भी कुछ इनके पास कुछ लिखे हुए, उस ज़माने के नहीं लिखे हुए, बाद में ही लिखा है लोगों ने किताब में। लेकिन वो कहते हैं जी ये फलाँ शायर ने ये कलाम कहा और फलाँ ने ये कहा। तो ये दौर जाहिलियत की शायरी उन्होंने कुछ रिकॉर्ड में, अपने हिस्टोरिकल रिकॉर्ड में लिखी हुई है, और वो उसको एज़ अ प्रेज़ेंट भी करते हैं कि देखें वो कितने ज़बरदस्त शायर थे, और देखिए कुरान ने उस ज़माने में लेकिन अपना एक, जैसे कहते हैं ना, लोहा मनवाया। अच्छा, लेकिन आपको थोड़े से ऑनेस्ट स्कॉलर्स अगर आप उनको सुनेंगे ना, तो वो ये कहते हैं कि इस बारे में बहुत ज़्यादा तहकीक ये हो चुकी है। खुद मुस्लिम स्कॉलर ये कह चुके हैं बहुत सारे, कि ये सारी की सारी शायरी घड़ी हुई है। ये खुद लिखी गई है, सिर्फ़ अपनी तरफ से लिखने वालों ने खुद ही लिख दी कि जी ये दौर जाहिलियत की,
जाहिलियत के
यानी
दौर
कि
की लिखी हुई
जाहिलियत
है।
दौर
हाँ,
की
ये
जाहिर की लिखी हुई है, हालाँकि लिखी भी खुद
मुल्लक़ात
है।
कहते थे उसको।
एग्ज़ैक्टली
मैं शायद
मुल्लक़ात कहते हैं, बिल्कुल आप सही कह रहे हैं,
मुल्लक़ात
मुल्लक़ात
कहते
इसको
थे,
वो
राइट।
कहते हैं।
हाँ।
और मुल्लक़ात इसको वो कहते हैं, और ये सब ये घड़ी हुई हैं सारी, कि ऑलमोस्ट सारी के सारी कहते हैं घड़ी हुई हैं। यानी कि
एग्ज़ैक्टली।
इसको
उसमें
खुद से
उसमें
लिखा हुआ है।
इमरुल काइस की
जी,
शायद इमरुल
जी।
काइस है, कौन है? मैं नाम भूल रहा हूँ, शायद इमरुल
मैं
काइस है या
नाम
कौन
मुझे
है?
नाम नहीं याद उनके,
हाँ, इमरुल काइस
लेकिन
की बहुत फ़ेमस है आई थिंक उसमें।
हाँ,
मैं
हाँ।
शायद अगर नाम
तो
गलत नहीं ले रहा हूँ तो, मेरी
तो
अगर याददाश्त ठीक है। हाँ।
वो उस बारे में ये वो कहते हैं कि जी मानते हैं कि जी ये कहीं, मतलब ये कहीं से एस्टेब्लिश नहीं कर सकते, और प्लस हम इनको कोई इनके अपने मुताबिक, अपने स्कॉलर्स के मुताबिक ये सब घड़ी गई हैं। तो अब देखें इनकी अपनी हिस्ट्री जो है, इसको इसके ऊपर ये खुद रिलाय नहीं कर सकते, ठीक है ना? ना तफ़सीर पर, ना हिस्ट्री की किताबों पर ये लोग रिलाय कर सकते हैं, सिर्फ़ उसमें से पॉज़िटिव वाक़यात उठाते हैं। सही हदीस में बहुत सारी चीज़ें इनको मिलती ही नहीं है, ज़ाहिर-सी बात है, बहुत सारे वाक़यात तो सही हदीस में मौजूद नहीं है। तो उसको जो है वो, ज़ाहिर-सी बात है, फिर उनको हिस्ट्री से उठाना पड़ता है। तो यहाँ पर ये खुद इनकी अप्रोच इनकंसिस्टेंट है, और यहाँ से खुद ये चीज़ साबित होती है कि ये अपनी हिस्ट्री पर जो इन्होंने खुद लिखी हुई है, उस पर रिलाय नहीं करते।
एग्ज़ैक्टली। सॉरी, यहाँ मैं पानी पी रहा था। हाँ। अच्छा, मैं आपकी बात से बिल्कुल 100% एग्री करता हूँ, और इसमें 1-2 पॉइंट और मैं चंद पॉइंट्स ऐड कर दूँ कि ये जो हदीसें जो लिखी गई हैं, ठीक है? अब आप अगर टाइमलाइन देखोगे ये सारी, आपको तो ख़याली आइडिया होगा ही इसका, कि ये जो टाइमलाइन है हदीसों का, चलिए कुरान का भी हमने मान लिया कि कुछ एक फ्रेगमेंट्स मिल जाते हैं इधर-उधर, प्रोटो कुरान मिल जाती है। मैंने इसका अब्दुल मलिक का वो दिया था, मैंने कहा कि आपको कॉइन्स नहीं मिलते। कॉइन्स उस ज़माने में जो है हुजूर साहब जो है वो दिनारों से डील करते थे, इधर-उधर जो भी खरीद फरोख्त होती थी, ठीक है? ये सब काम हो रहे थे उस टाइम पे। पर आपको एक भी सिक्का उस ज़माने में नहीं मिलेगा जिसमें, जो कि सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ हुई है, मान लीजिए 610 से लेके 632 तक के सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ जो है, अगर सही है वाक़या, राइट? जो भी आपका क्लेम सही है, ऑथेंटिक क्लेम है, तो ये जो इस ज़माने में जो भी आपका रिवलेशन है, वो सबसे अहम आपका वो होना चाहिए, वाक़या होना चाहिए। उसको आपने रिकॉर्ड कर लेना चाहिए, और उसकी जो है उसके बारे में आपको ढेरों रेफरेंसेस मिलने चाहिए। पर आपको 80 साल से, मतलब 632 से लेके हुजूर साहब की वफ़ात के बाद से आपको 80 साल तक, 70 साल तक आपको कुछ नहीं मिलता, बिल्कुल खाली है। ना आपको कोई इंडिपेंडेंट कोई वेरिफिकेशन मिलता है, ना कोई इस नाम से कोई शख्स मिलता है, ना उस नाम से कोई आपको मज़हब मिलता है, ना उस नाम से आपको कोई कौम मिलती है, ठीक है? आपको जाके लेट करीब-करीब ज़ुबैर के इसमें दौर में आपको एक सिक्का मिलता है, जिसमें सिर्फ़ इतना लिखा है, आई थिंक कलमा लिखा हुआ है बस उसमें, ठीक है? वो आपको ज़ुबैर के टाइम पे मिलता है। उसके बाद अब्दुल मलिक आता है 692 में। ये कितने टाइम हो गया इसको? करीब 60 साल निकल गए सर ये, ठीक है? 60 साल के बाद आपको अब्दुल मलिक के टाइम पे आपको कलमा मिलता है सिक्कों पे बेसिकली। उस बीच आपको कुछ नहीं मिलता है, कुछ भी नहीं, तो खाली। पर आपका ये मानना है कि ये सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट मैसेज है, ठीक है? ना आपको इसमें कोई आपको कोई डॉक्यूमेंट्स मिल रहे हैं, ना आपको कुछ मिल रहा है। तो आर्गुमेंट्स उस तरफ से क्या आती है कि ये जो है उस ज़माने के लोग जो हैं, मतलब फिर बहुत ही मुख्तलिफ आपको आर्गुमेंट्स मिलती हैं इसमें, और वो ये कि ये उस टाइम सिक्के नहीं चलते थे, लोग सिक्के यूज़ नहीं करना चाहते थे, या उस टाइम क्रिश्चियन ज़्यादा थे इसलिए सिक्कों पे, क्योंकि एक मुआविया का सिक्का है, मेरे ख्याल से 680 AD के आसपास का है। उसमें अगर आप देखोगे मुआविया जो था वो उमवी था, बेसिकली उमायद डायनेस्टी से था। तो मुआविया के जो सिक्के पे अगर आप देखोगे तो क्रॉस बना हुआ दिखता है। तो इससे कई लोग जो हैं स्कॉलर्स क्वेश्चन भी करते हैं, एटलीस्ट जो ओरिएंटलिस्ट जो हैं वो
जी
क्वेश्चन करते हैं कि जो उमवी थे वो क्रिश्चियंस थे किसी तरह के, तो वो मतलब वो जो हाइपोथेसिस है उसको और स्ट्रेंथन करता है वो सिक्का बेसिकली। ख्याली आप कुछ कहना चाहते थे, प्लीज।
नहीं नहीं, आप सही कह रहे हैं। मैं सिर्फ ये करता कि बिल्कुल वो उसमें ऐसा ही मिलता है। हिस्टोरियंस को यही ने यही मेंशन किया है कि इवन उनके लेटर्स में भी मेरा ख्याल है कुछ सलीब का या कुछ ऐसा मिलता है। उसमें भी कहीं हुजूर हजरत मोहम्मद का या इसका जिक्र इस्लाम का नहीं मिलता।
नहीं, और इवन इवन आप ये देखोगे कि उस जमाने में जो जेरूसलम पे कब्जा हो गया था 636 के आसपास, ठीक है, अरब फोर्सेस का बेसिकली। पर वो जो वहाँ के चर्चेस वगैरह वो वैसे के वैसे ही थे। और ये बात हो रही है 660 के आसपास की, 665 के आसपास की बात हो रही है। वहाँ पे चर्चेस वगैरह, वहाँ पे सब कुछ वैसा का वैसे ही चल रहा है जैसे अरबों के आने के पहले हुआ था, मतलब ये अरेबिक फोर्सेस आने के पहले। तो इसका मतलब ये हुआ, और भी कुछ और आर्ग्यूमेंट्स हैं मेरे पास जो कभी अगर हुआ तो मैं बाद में रखूंगा सामने, कि ये जो उमवी थे, ये इनका कुछ रिलीजन जो है वो अलग जरूर था, वो एकदम प्रॉपर क्रिश्चियन नहीं कहते थे अपने आप को, पर वो शायद नेस्टोरियन क्रिश्चियंस रहे होंगे या कुछ इस तरह के क्रिश्चियंस रहे होंगे जिसमें वो ट्रिनिटी को नहीं मानते थे। उनके इसमें ट्रिनिटी जैसे कॉन्सेप्ट को उन्होंने अलग कर दिया था बेसिकली, पर वो थे क्रिश्चियंस ही, राइट? ऐसा है। और बहुत सारी आर्गुमेंट्स हैं। दूसरा एक पॉइंट जो मेरे दिमाग में था वो ये था कि आप ये कह रहे हो आपको इंडिपेंडेंट कोई अगर आपको अटेस्टेशन नहीं मिलता है, आप कह रहे हो कि हमारे पास जो है वो तवातुर है, बेसिकली हमारे पास ये चेन ऑफ नरेशंस है, इंडिपेंडेंट चेन ऑफ नरेशंस। आप उसमें क्यों नहीं बिलीव करते? ये मुफ्ती साहब ने मेरे से कहा था कि आप उसमें क्यों नहीं बिलीव करते। मैंने कहा मेरे
ये खुद
पास,
उसमें बिलीव नहीं करते।
राइट, मैंने कहा कि अगर यही चीज़ आपको क्रिश्चियंस की तरफ से मिलती तो आप उसमें बिलीव करते हो, क्योंकि वो तो रिसरेक्शन के लिए वो 5,000 की टेस्टमनी देते हैं, वहाँ पे आप क्यों नहीं मानते उस चीज़ को, राइट? अगर आप कंसिस्टेंट हो, मैं हालांकि मैंने ये आर्ग्यूमेंट उनको नहीं दी क्योंकि मेरे को इतना टाइम मिला ही नहीं, पर ये मैं आपको सिर्फ पॉइंट बता रहा हूँ कि इसका काउंटर आर्ग्यूमेंट क्या है बेसिकली, क्योंकि मेरे को वहाँ पे उस टाइम फिर ज़्यादा बात करने का मौका ही नहीं मिला, तो मैं ये सारे काउंटर आर्गुमेंट्स नहीं रख पाया। पर ये पॉइंट है कि अगर सेम अगर आप अपने ऊपर अप्लाई कर रहे हैं ये, तो अगर ये आपकी मयार है तो यही मयार आपको क्रिश्चियंस के साथ भी आपको इस्तेमाल करना चाहिए बेसिकली।
देखें, इसमें मैं खास तौर पे एक पॉइंट और ऐड करूंगा कि ये इसका शायद वो ये जवाब देते हैं, वो बोलेंगे वो जो 5,000 हैं कौन थे, वो हमें तो नहीं पता ना, वो उसको कोई, हम तो अपने तवातुर का जो है वो एक एक आपको बता सकते हैं कौन क्या था, क्या करता था, और ये सब कहानी वो करते हैं ना कि जी हमारे पास इल्म और रिजाल पूरा है। ठीक है, पॉइंट ये है कि अगर इनको तवातुर पर यकीन है, अपने इनको अपने तवातुर का, ये जो इन्होंने हदीस की साइंस है बेसिकली, इस पर इनको इतना भरोसा खुद है, तो ठीक है, फिर सही अहादीस खास तौर पे जो कि एक ही टॉपिक पर मल्टीपल अहादीस मिल रहे हैं अगर किसी टॉपिक पर, तो कम से कम उसमें इनको कोई शक नहीं रहना चाहिए कि नहीं जी ये सही नहीं है। लेकिन ऐसा नहीं है, इनको मल्टीपल अहादीस मिलती हैं कि जिसमें इनको प्रॉब्लम होती है, और ये इसकी बहुत ही सिवियरली डिफरेंट जो है वो तावीलें या तो करते हैं या रिजेक्ट भी करने को रिजेक्ट भी कर देते हैं। और मैं उसकी मिसाल एक अक्सर दिया करता हूँ। अगर आप तकदीर के मसले में यानी फ्री विल के मसले में अगर आप अहादीस पढ़ लें, तो इस मौजू पे एक नहीं 20 हदीसें मौजूद हैं, और मेरे ख्याल है उन 20 में से शायद 20 की 20 हदीसें जो है ना, वो जो 20 की 20 हदीसें, वो अगर आप पढ़ें तो उनमें से किसी में से भी आप कदरिया का जो अकीदा है, कदरिया मीनिंग होता है कि फ्री विल एग्जिस्ट करती है, और जबरिया होती है कि फ्री विल एग्जिस्ट नहीं करती। इस्लामिक टर्मिनोलॉजी ये है। तो उनके अगर आप वो हदीसें पढ़ें तो आपको यही पता चलेगा कि जी जबरिया ही का अकीदा है, कदरिया का कोई अकीदा नहीं है, यानी इस हदीसों के मुताबिक फ्री विल एग्जिस्ट नहीं करती।
नहीं करती, राइट राइट
ठीक
राइट।
है? अब इस मौजू पर इतनी हदीस मौजूद हैं डिफरेंट रावियों से, और डिफरेंट डिफरेंट हदीसें मौजूद हैं। यानी एक ये नहीं है कि एक हदीस के मुख्तलिफ तुर्क मौजूद हैं, कि एक ही हदीस वो भी मौजूद है कि एक-एक हदीस 2-2 3-3 लोगों से आ रही है। एक ही टॉपिक पर टॉपिक यही कवर हो रहा है, लेकिन बिल्कुल मुख्तलिफ एंगल से डिफरेंट हदीसें उस मौजू पर मौजूद हैं, और वो सब की सब जबरिया के अकीदे की तरफ इशारा करती हैं। लेकिन ये सब इन हदीसों की तावील करते हैं, और तावील ऐसी करते हैं कि जैसे मिसाल इसकी ये है कि मैं कहूँ किसी काली चीज़ को, मैं कहूँ मैं तावील करके कह दूँ नहीं यार ये काली नहीं है, असल में ये तो सफ़ेद है। तो भाई आप इसको तावील नहीं कहेंगे, आप कहने को सिर्फ़ ये इसको ये कि ना कहने के लिए कि हम रिजेक्ट कर रहे हैं, आप कह रहे हैं कि मैं तावील कर रहा हूँ, लेकिन आप तावील नहीं कर रहे हैं, आप उस हदीस को रिजेक्ट कर रहे हैं।
राइट राइट राइट।
अगर आप
हाँ
ब्लैक
नहीं
को
ये
व्हाइट करना कहना चाहते हो, तो फिर आप
हम्म,
सॉरी आप उसको मान ही नहीं रहे हो कि यार वो ब्लैक है। ये मत कहो कि नहीं मैं तो मान रहा हूँ। आप नहीं मान रहे हो उसको, आप रिजेक्ट कर रहे हो उस हदीस को। और इस तरह से
राइट
और भी
राइट
बहुत सिमिलर हदीस मिल जाती हैं। जादू पे जो हज़रत हुज़ूर पर जादू की जो हदीस है, मल्टीपल सोर्सेस से आपको मिलती हैं, लेकिन ये उसको रिजेक्ट करते हैं। काफ़ी सारे स्कॉलर्स को कि नहीं, नहीं इसमें हम तावील करेंगे। तो
राइट।
ये
इससे इससे पहले एक और ख्याली, सॉरी
जी, जी, आप
प्लीज
करें। बिल्कुल,
कंप्लीट कंप्लीट
बस
करो
ठीक है,
कंप्लीट।
सही है मेरी बात पूरी हो गई, आप करें।
अच्छा नहीं, मैं सिर्फ ये कह रहा था कि इसमें आप जब आप देखोगे बुखारी की कितनी हदीसें करीब 7,500 के आसपास है रफली, ठीक है।
जी, 7,000 के नज़दीक कुछ है, 7 साढ़े 7।
हाँ 7 7 साढ़े 7 के बीच में कुछ है, ठीक है। और आप देखोगे तो बुखारी ने ऐसा कहते हैं कि 6 लाख के आसपास करीब करीब कलेक्ट की थी, राइट। उसमें से 98% डिस्कार्डेड है, 7,000 7,500 7,000 के आसपास आई हैं। उसमें से भी रेपुटेशन अगर आप हटा दो तो करीब मेरे ख्याल से 2,700 के आसपास बनती हैं, ऐसी कुछ बनती हैं रफली, राइट। तो मेरा सबसे पहला बुनियादी सवाल ये है कि जब हदीसें इतनी सारी गढ़ी जा रही थी, मतलब वो 98% डिस्कार्ड कर दी, तो अगर आपने अगर चेन ऑफ नरेशंस आपने अगर मेरा ये पॉइंट है कि अगर आपने मतन गढ़ा हुआ है तो आपने फिर चेन ऑफ नरेशन क्यों अच्छा है या बुरा, ये सवाल है बुनियादी। आप समझे मैं क्या पॉइंट दे रहा
हुँ,
हूँ यहाँ पे।
आपका पॉइंट ये है कि अगर हम कंटेंट को हम घड़ सकते हैं, तो हम चेन ऑफ नरेशन क्यों नहीं घड़ सकते?
हाँ मेरा यही पॉइंट है, और ये वो जो क्योंकि उसके बारे में कुछ इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं है कि वो जो 98% वो हदीसें कौन सी हैं, क्या है वो, कहीं है कहाँ, वो सिर्फ लिखा हुआ है, राइट। इमाम बुखारी ने कह दिया कि इतनी मैंने हदीसें इकट्ठा की थी, उसमें से मैं सिर्फ 98
हुँ,
2% या 1% चंद परसेंट कंपाइल कर रहा हूँ बेसिकली। आपको ये भी प्रूफ करना पड़ेगा, हर एक हदीस जो है उसके पीछे जो है नरेटर्स ऑन एन एवरेज जो है वो 6 के आसपास ऑन एन एवरेज नरेटर्स हैं, राइट, या 6 या 7 के आसपास नरेटर्स। कहाँ से आए, कैसे आपने किया, कौन सा रावी सही है, मतलब कौन सा रावी जो है वो रिलायबल है, कौन सा नहीं है, ये सारी कहाँ से आपने इन्फॉर्मेशन। क्योंकि इसके बाद जो हदीस का साइंस जो डेवलप हुआ, उनमें से कईयों ने तो बुखारी की जो सही हदीस, बुखारी इज सेकंड टू कुरान ओनली, राइट, उसमें से भी कई जो हदीसें हैं आज के जो करंट स्कॉलर्स हैं वो डिस्कार्ड कर देते हैं बेसिकली। एनीवे ख्याली आप अपना पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू अगर इस पर रखना चाहें प्लीज।
नहीं बिल्कुल मैं यही पॉइंट रख रहा था कि अगर इनको अपनी हदीस साइंस पर इतना ज़्यादा भरोसा है, तो चलें ठीक है, हम ये नहीं कह रहे कि इंसानी साइंस है तो कोई 100% उसने रिज़ल्ट दिया होगा। बट फिर उसके आउटपुट पर एटलीस्ट इनको खुद भरोसा होना चाहिए। और अगर एक बिल्कुल आपको हदीस में एक सही हदीस में आपको एक कंटेंट या एक मतन मिलता है कंटिन्यूअसली एटलीस्ट तवातुर से या मल्टीपल सोर्सेस से, तो फिर ठीक है, आप अपनी हदीस साइंस के मुताबिक फिर उसको रिजेक्ट करने का आपके पास कोई जवाज़ नहीं बचता। तो फिर आप उसको एक्सेप्ट करें, लेकिन ये ऐसा नहीं करते। इनको पता है कि इनकी खुद जो हदीस साइंस है, उसमें वीकनेस की सबसे बड़ी जो इंडिकेशन है वो ये है कि ये लोग अपनी हदीस साइंस पर यानी सारी हदीसों को जो सही सही चेन की भी हों उसको एक्सेप्ट नहीं करते। उसमें भी ये लोग सिलेक्टिव रहते हैं और एक्सेप्ट और रिजेक्ट करते हैं। बिल्कुल, ऐसा ही है।
हाँ, आई थिंक हमें एक किसी टाइम पे इस पर भी एक स्ट्रीम करनी पड़ेगी। थोड़ा सा आप रहोगे साथ में। महादिन, मुझे नहीं आइडिया महादिन को कितना मुझे जहाँ तक आइडिया है, महादिन ने इतना ज़्यादा डीपली हदीसों में नहीं घुसा है, नहीं हदीस साइंस का मेरे ख्याल से महादिन को आइडिया हो। तो मेरे ख्याल से मुझे और आपको पहले हम महादिन से पूछ लेंगे कि इस पे करना है या नहीं। मैंने महादिन से बोला ज़रूर था एक बार कि हम हदीस साइंस पे एक आध बार बात करेंगे कभी, अगर पॉसिबल हुआ तो अगर हुआ तो आप और मैं और महादिन भी, इनफैक्ट हम तीनों मिलके उस पर भी करें। मेरे ख्याल से बहुत सारे टॉपिक्स हैं जिसपे हम काफ़ी स्ट्रीम्स कर सकते हैं, तो देखते हैं क्या पॉसिबल होता है।
बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल, श्योर।
चलो फिर इस स्ट्रीम को अपन एंड करें अभी। यहाँ कुछ
बिल्कुल,
है?
आई थिंक करते हैं, क्लोज़ करते हैं।
क्लोज कर देते हैं। फ्लाईव्हील, आपको कुछ कहना है? फाइनल थॉट्स? फ्लाईव्हील भाई, आपकी आवाज़ नहीं आ रही है, आप म्यूट हैं। ओके, मेरे ख्याल से वो लगता है शायद चलो ख्याली, we'll close the stream. Thanks for dropping
जी
by.
भाई।
Thanks for your thought-provoking, ideas and inputs on this stream and other topics, basically. So yeah, we'll have some other stream next time and then see. I think first thing is कि हम लोग ये जो डिबेट है इसका रिव्यू जल्दी से जल्दी
आप
ख़त्म
ख़त्म
करें,
कर
फिर
लें।
बहुत सारे दूसरे जो
जी,
टॉपिक्स हैं वो अपन स्लोली फिर उठाते रहेंगे।
बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल। चलें,
ठीक है, चलो फिर,
ओके,
है ना, बात
ओके
करते
फाइन,
हैं। ऑलराइट एवरीबॉडी,
थैंक यू।
whoever's gonna listen to the stream, please subscribe, share and वो जो घंटी वाला बटन है उसको आप दबा दीजिए, तो आपको नोटिफिकेशन मिलेगा जब भी नेक्स्ट स्ट्रीम होगी। और ज्वाइन कीजिए अगर आपको कुछ सवाल है, कुछ क्वेश्चन है मेरे लिए, ख्याली भाई के लिए या महादेन के लिए, किसी के लिए भी आपके पास कोई सवाल है, ज़रूर आइए, ज्वाइन कीजिए, पूछिए। और अगर हमारे आप ज़रूर कोशिश करें। सो चलिए एवरीबॉडी, बाय बाय।